lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete that. He's crazy stuff.
Westside Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Global Sim Racing Channel's broadcast of Round 4 of the new Lionheart Retro Series. Tonight's race will feature iRacing's classic Lotus 79 on a track that goes by a few nicknames, like the Tricky Triangle. That's right, we are at the three-turn beast known as Pocono. Tonight not only marks Round 4 of the Retro Series, it marks the first race in this year's Triple Crown for these gentlemen drivers. Sit back and enjoy the race, but also take a moment to think about those that have given everything as we run the Remember the Fallen 250. Hello, I'm Adam Young, and with me tonight in the booth is Tanner Sharp. In the director's chair, doing his best to make us look good, and believe me, that's a hard job sometimes, Mr. Joe Peak. And he'll be featuring the wonderful cameras of Dougie Beard. Good evening to you, Tanner. Tanner, Pocono is one of those tracks that you just can't ever set up perfectly for. Tell us a little bit about the track and maybe some of the challenges they might face tonight.
Good evening to you, Adam, and you just pointed it out right there too. Pocono is one of those tracks on the iRacing surface, and of course in real life, one of the hardest to get ever set up for a perfect balance. Why is that? Well, it's because Pocono Raceway has a very unique design. It was designed by the 1959 and 1962 Indy 500 winner Roger Ward. Each turn is modeled after 3 different racetracks. Turn 1 is 14 degrees, which was modeled after the now defunct Trenton Speedway, which was located in Trenton, New Jersey. Turn 2, which is also known as the Tunnel Turn, is like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway, home of the Indy 500, which is banked of 9 degrees of banking. And Turn 3, which is 6 degrees of banking, is similar to the 100-plus-year-old racetrack, the Milwaukee Mile. So to get an idea how to get around this tricky of a triangle that is, let's hop on board this GSRC Lotus 79 for a lap guide around Pocono.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Global Sim Racing Channel. I'm Brian Yazek, taking you for a spin around the Pocono Raceway in the Lotus 79. Pocono Raceway is a 2.5-mile oval, but it's not quite your traditional oval as you'll see here. Starting off down the front stretch, wide enough to fit 7 wide, as what we saw in the actual IndyCar race there last year. Heading off down here to turn 1, looking for those trees to start, make a late corner, let the rough side drag, shoot the sparks out the rear end of the car, aim it right back out of turn 1, right about the end of that safer barrier, and just kind of hover right down here down the Long Pond straightaway, named because Long Pond, Pennsylvania is just off of that straightaway about due east. Down here into the tunnel turn. They call it the tunnel turn because that's the tunnel to get into the track. Down here, real bumpy, floating it back out across, kind of aim for that wall. Down here through the short chute, and here comes turn 3. Long, sweeping corner based off of the Milwaukee Mile in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Coming out of here, aim for the sign on the wall, bring it down on the front stretch. And plenty of time to think, but across the line. And that is going to complete our track guide here around Pocono. I'm Brian Yazek. Enjoy the show.
And that's a fast lap around Pocono. Thanks to Brian for taking us around the raceway. Now, of course, tonight, well, we do have a special sponsored onboard camera for tonight with Brian Greenlee. Brian is going to be sponsored tonight by the Officer Down Memorial page. If you don't know anything about Brian, he is an officer himself. And please stick around. Immediately following the race here this evening, we are going to talk to Brian and talk to him about the page and everything else. So it should be something definitely to stay tuned for, especially if you have family or any kind of interest in law enforcement and everything else. And of course, we are running the Remember the Fallen 250 here for tonight, so definitely a good time to remember them. Of course, they're all out there doing kind of a little bit of a practice race right now. And of course, with that, we obviously want to talk about the points. It's a tight points battle. We're going to get to that in a minute. But Tanner, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the series and the race here today?
Yes, sir. Lionheart Retro Series. I also like to call it the Xfinity of the Lionheart IndyCar League. Tonight we are racing round 4 of 18 with 2 drop weeks. This is the first Triple Crown. The car we're using tonight is the retro Lotus 79 race car. The setup is fixed. It's actually created by one of the league members in this session tonight. Distance is 250 miles for 100 laps around Pocono. Fast repairs, 0. So if you damage your car really bad, you are out of this race. So keep it clean out there. Fuel is 35%, so that's approximately 2 pit stops tonight these drivers are going to be making. There is an incident cap, disqualification with penalty points at a 12x. So if you touch the wall, make contact with another car, or even hit the grass area, it can be worth anywhere from a 1x to a 4x. Penalty points, it will start at a 8x. Restarts is at a single file restarts tonight, and the weather tonight is 74 degrees. Winds tonight is 2 miles an hour coming from the north. Humidity 55%. Mostly cloudy setting, pretty much sunny on the beat that's beating on the racetrack at the moment, and it's an afternoon setting. Track temperature 85 degrees, so it can be definitely slick out there, especially on an old pavement of Pocono.
Yeah, and of course, for tonight, you just saw there on your screen a few minutes ago just how quickly things can happen at Pocono, even when the guys are just kind of getting out there and trying to run a little bit together. But hey, let's talk about that championship. Jake Wright continues to lead the points with very consistent running. He's actually up 2 spots from last week, but he's up there because he hasn't finished below 6 at all this season. So he's got a 13-point lead out there above right now Jason Galvin, the newsman out of California, and of course Robert Mike sitting right now in 3rd position. A guy to possibly keep an eye on tonight is going to be Joe Branch. Joe is about 29 points behind the leader. Never mind that, it's a little bit of a typo right there. He's 29 points behind the leader, but every time they've ran this series in the main Lionheart IndyCar series, as far as Triple Crown races here at Pocono, Joe Branch has been able to finish on the podium, so he knows how to get the job done at Pocono. All right, now there's also a team championship on the line here for this season, and of course No Name Racing with the likes of Jake Wright behind it, jumping out to a 38-point lead here so far over Adrenaline Motorsports. Of course, you got AGR Motorsports sitting in 3rd, Dragonfly Racing sitting in 4th, and CCR Controlled Chaos Racing sitting in 5th position. And of course, the series does issue bonus points for winning the pole, leading a lap, leading the most laps, and running an incident-free race. Now, Tanner, last race at Watkins Glen, Ryan Otis put on a show, taking the win over Jake Wright by about 22 seconds. We're probably not going to see somebody run away with it, at least like that, here for today. What are some things you're going to be watching out for as the race goes on?
Well, first and foremost, since we're at Pocono and not Watkins Glen, we definitely are not taking a right turn today, but if you do take a right turn, it'll be in the outside wall. First off, here at Pocono, since it is the tricky triangle and 3 distinct different corners, number 1, hitting your marks. You got to hit your marks just right, especially down in that turn 3 Milwaukee Mile 6 degree of banking area, because you want to run a little bit higher. The lower you run in that corner, the more you're wearing out the tires. So definitely hit your marks on every corner, because each and every corner is different. Number 2, long straightaway drafting speeds. I mean, this track is big when it comes to drafting speeds down the straightaways, especially that front straightaway. That front straightaway is a mammoth. It's 3,740 foot long front stretch, so you can definitely pick up a draft and try to slingshot past your opponent on the racetrack. Keep an eye on that as well. Number 3, tire wear. This is the old pavement of Pocono, not the repaved. So the tire wear is going to be big, and as a run goes on, about 15-20 laps, watch that nasty bump down in turn number 1, because it can definitely send some guys spinning on entry to the corner.
That we're going to be sorry. That's something happened with my button there. Apologies for that. All right, so obviously those are going to be things that we're going to be watching out here for tonight, and of course, that you bring up that massively long straightaway there, Tanner. That straightaway is long enough to land some. Not all. You're not going to land a 747 on it, but some commercial aircraft, theoretically, at least anyway. So, yeah, obviously a very long straightaway here at Pocono is one of the classic things about this track, watching the start of the race, and you're going to see that here for today, how these guys are just going to fan out trying to get into turn 1 and jockeying for position there. So Tanner, of course, we've talked a little bit with Sam Raymond, of course, one of our broadcasters here on GSRC. He's running here tonight about a little bit about what to expect here during the race, and he was able to kind of tell us a little bit more about that turn 1 bump. About how far into the run do you think we're going to be having to watch out for that?
Well, as the tires wear, and like I did say earlier, this is it's not a repaved Pocono, it's the old pavement. So the tire wear is going to be starting to come in about 10 laps in. So I'd say with about around lap 15, lap 20, tire wear, you'll start noticing the difference in the tires. And if you just hit the bumps just wrong on entry of the corners, especially turn 1, since it's the biggest banking on the racetrack, that's 14 degrees, you hit it just wrong, you can definitely go for a spin. And like what Sam said in the notes, there is a nasty bump down there. Another thing to keep an eye on is gearing. Fourth gear is preferred at this racetrack. Fifth gear for drafting and top speeds, and it can save fuel. And if you're going to use that long straightaway to save fuel by drafting with somebody, you can save about a lap or 2 of fuel. So that's something to keep an eye on tonight as well.
Yeah, and one thing we're kind of noticing a little bit here, particularly in qualifying, has been as soon as some of these guys get on the gas, their back ends are trying to want to come around on them. So maybe cold tires might be a little bit of an issue here today too. So obviously we'll be having to watch that at the start of the race. Of course, right now what you're watching is qualifying. Lap times around here at Pocono are going to be anywhere in the 48 to 49 second range. And of course that's going to depend if you have some draft or not, that kind of thing. But a lot of these guys are trying to get out here and trying to make their run to get out there and have a potential at a pole run. Remember, the pole's important here because you have 2 bonus points going for the pole winner. I mean, 2 bonus points with this type of a points race that we have, that very well could be a big thing. And one thing I'm noticing is one of the really fast guys in practice, Jonathan Goke, I've been watching a little bit of his trying to get out there and get running, and he's having a little trouble getting going to be able to put down a lap at this point.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one thing I like to bring up too is qualifying session. The longer you're flat-footing it if you're by yourself out there on the racetrack without drafting, you're flat-footing each and every corner, so you're burning up more fuel, and when you burn up more fuel, your car's going to run faster. So look for a lot of these guys, not just Jonathan Goke, but look for a lot of these guys put down a fast lap time on their second lap. So that's going to be a big thing as well. And in my opinion, since qualifying started, the race has already started. You said you get 2 bonus points for a pole, so the race has already started here, Adam.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. So, we also mentioned some of the other things that you get bonus points for. I'll read off that list again here real quick. You're winning the pole, of course, but also leading a lap and leading the most laps during the race. So if you have an opportunity to maybe try to take that lead a little bit early in the race, in the draft, you're obviously going to try to take it. And another thing is a big one that a lot of guys do try to focus on, and looking at and if you go on Lionheart's website, by the way, at lionheartracingseries.com, they do a terrific media guide. Now, of course, that's usually just for us, but they do put a lot of stuff in there if you're a fan of this series. And one of the things that they do keep tally of is incidents throughout the season. And a lot of guys have 0 incidents so far, so that's obviously one thing they really want to try to focus on, too, because you run an incident-free race, you get another 2 bonus points.
Yeah, so you want to have a clean race every race. Like you said, there is a lot of guys out there, and Jake Wright, our current points leader in the series, is one of them. Ryan Otis is one of them with 0 incident points. So those guys have been staying out of trouble so far this season. And a lot of them are, actually, 3 of them are actually in the top 10 in points. So like drivers like James Krahula and Ryan Otis and Jake Wright. So those incident points will keep you out of trouble, and they can give you good finishes too.
Absolutely. So we're getting ready to enter the last minute of qualifying here, and of course it will be a little bit of a longer pace lap around Pocono, so we'll have time to go through the grid here in just a couple of minutes. But so far early on the pole is going to be Big Joe Hassard, at least so far, as some guys are still out there turning their second laps. So of course who you're watching on screen right now looks to be car number 81, Patrick Taylor. Nice big blue machine out there. Man, I love these Lotus 79s. They're some of the, in my opinion, some of the best looking cars on iRacing with that classic Lotus design from the old World Championship race in Formula One. So these guys, it just makes for a really good retro series to have these cars. And of course, also goes along with the news, a little bit of a shameless plug here. Starting this Sunday, GSRC on late Sunday morning, early Sunday afternoon, depending where you're at in the States, and of course, a couple hours later, going in the late afternoon, early evening in Europe, GSRC is going to be broadcasting the Lotus 79 official series top splits. That's some exciting news and something you should definitely tune in for. Okay, so qualifying is wrapping up here. Cars are going to get ready to start the grid. I do believe everybody has put in their times, and we can say that the pole is going to go to Jonathan Goke with a 49.176 out there. Oh, wow, look at that, Tanner. Only 4 thousandths of a second above Big Joe Hassard out there. Tanner?
Yeah, that is really close in qualifying indeed, man. That is crazy, especially in these lowest 79s. Third place is going to go to Bob Mikes, who was 29th in practice, so he's going to get a top 3 qualifying spot in this race. And Jake C. Wright, our point leader, will start 4th.
Yeah, Patrick Taylor, you just saw him on your screen a minute ago, going to start in the inside of row 3. Outside of row 3, one of those guys I said to keep an eye on, Joe Branch.
In 7th place tonight, David Altman and Vincent Beluthanol will roll off 8th. I apologize if the last name incorrect.
Ryan Otis, of course, we know Ryan Otis won last time at Watkins Glen. Well, he's going to start in the inside of row 5, 9th place here today. Outside of him, our very own Samuel Raymond.
Outside the top 10 tonight, Dustin Wardlow will start 11th. Travis Jageliner will roll off 12th. In 13th place, will roll off Pierre Diego. 14th place is league organizer George Anzaldo.
Oh, sorry, my button got me again. All right, but take one thing I wanted to point out. Look at everybody within a tenth of a second of each other here tonight, Tanner, all the way down to 13th position. Row 8, 15th, James Paulson. Starting outside of him, it's going to be Matthew Mercer.
Ron Hacker will roll off 17th, and 18th is Ed Tutwiler.
Robert Blue is going to start 19th in row 10 alongside our sponsored camera today with the Amsterdam Memorial page, Brian Greenlee.
Just starting outside the top 20, Bradley Walters in 21st. And 22nd tonight, Stephen Pauly.
And very surprising, starting that far back, it's going to be Jason Galvin. He's going to want to try to get up there, try to get some points and stay up there in the point standings. He's starting 23rd in the inside of row 12. Outside of row 12 is going to belong to Chris Stouffer, another guy high up in the point standings, but a little bit further back in this field.
25th position tonight, John Napier will roll off in 25th. Andrew Kinsella, 26. Actually, a surprising qualifying time for Andrew Kinsella. He's usually always starting in the top 10.
Yeah, and of course, Tony Schoen is back here as well, 27th position, and did not put down a time. He is, however, in the server. In fact, I'm just going to round it out here real quick. All 3 of these guys are in the server that did not put down times. Chris Laney, Rory Collins, and Drew Montz will round out the field, and Gregory Napier will round out the field here for today. So we do have 16 rows of cars. We are out there with 31 drivers ready to go. Now, let me tell you what, these guys always put on a whale of a show. If you've never had a chance to check out the Lionheart Retro Series, well, I really hope you sit down and enjoy the show as these guys get ready to round the tunnel turn following that Porsche pace car and get ready to start this race here in just a moment. Tanner, you got any final thoughts before we get going?
Well, I always enjoy watching the Pocono Raceway on the NASCAR side of it, and tonight is probably going to be no different. It's just going to be a lot higher speeds and a lot of strategy going on. These Lotus 79s are ready to take the green flag at the tricky triangle, and we're going to really cut them loose. 31 Lotus 79s. They're going to be they're small, but they're going to be bad, fast, and loud.
Absolutely, and once again, just be sure to stick around immediately following the race. Before we do our normal driver interviews, we're going to talk to Brian Greenlee about the Amsterdam Memorial page as we're going to run the Remember the Fallen 250-miler race here for today. So I tell you what, let's remember the fallen for a minute here as we start this race and turn up the volume as we get going and watch these guys spread out.
Green flag. We are racing at the Pocono Raceway in these Lotus 79s, going down to 3,740 foot backs or front straightaway, not the back straightaway, as they head down into Trenton turn number 1.
You just see these guys moving around. Some of those guys are still 3 wide going back there, coming on the exit of turn 3. But now, you get ready to go through the tunnel turn, and tunnel turn can be a little bit on the hard side, especially trying to go side by side. It almost doesn't matter what car you're driving for that. It's always a little bit on the hard side, a little bit on the bumpy side as well, where that tunnel that runs underneath that corner kind of dips down a little bit as these guys fly off into turn 3. Turn 3, long, sleeping corner. You don't have a lot of banking there. But so far, Jonathan Goke is running away. He might be able to lead the first lap here, but Big Joe Hassard, he's going to go ahead and try to take the run on him going into turn 1.
31 Lotus 79s, 31 Lotus 79s have completed the first lap here as Jonathan Goat is going to lead a lap there. Big Joe Hazard not too far behind. He needs a good run. He's actually 12th in the point standings, so this is actually so far a good run for Big Joe Hazard.
Yeah, and it looks like was only able to lead about half of that lap right there is Jonathan Goke's going to take back the lead coming out of the exit of the tunnel turn. You're probably going to see that quite a bit here for today. As while they look like they're running single file, they're going to try to take advantage of the draft every chance they get and try to gain their positions as well. I don't think there's going to be much fuel saving to be done by trying to run in the draft the entire time. So look for these guys to go hard the entire race distance here. Tonight, we've got a car in the wall, big wreck on the front stretch, car in the inside wall. We do have one car up on its lid.
Ron Hackers is involved.
Caution is obviously on the speedway. George Anzaldo, very, very tore up L79 out of that as well. I think he is one of the cars that just kind of flew out there here for a second. Watch the replay as we're following Ron Hacker. I think that's George Anzaldo that was in the wall up at the top. He just kind of grazed the wall, picked him up, and it ended up just getting nailed by all the traffic. Nowhere for a lot of guys to go.
Yeah, George Anzaldo really tried in keeping that car on the outside wall, but the way that Lotus 79 was just bouncing on that wall, it kind of shot him towards the middle of the racetrack in traffic, and that's very unfortunate for quite a few drivers.
Yeah, Matthew Mercer was one of the cars involved. I tell you what, Joe, what I'd like to do is we can go back and take a look at that incident one more time. I'd like to get an onboard of Andrew Kinsella.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, boy. This will be exciting. I tell you what, Andrew Kinsella, we're going to get up on a replay right here in the Budweiser machine here.
Right above his helmet, right on the roll bar. Let's just watch this view.
And folks, just remember, you only get a cockpit view on iRacing, and you got to dodge this wreck.
Man, I believe it was the 1996 Indy 500 where there was a wreck where a car got up into the fence, the catch fence, and somebody went right underneath it. I'm trying to remember the two drivers' names, but that almost reminded me of that, except without the wall and the catch fence being involved there. But Andrew Kinsella can be very lucky right there. I don't see any damage on his car at all, so...
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take an early opportunity here to rest and take a quick break, because I'm sure we're going to be in for plenty of excitement here for tonight. We'll be right back. And we're joining us right back, right at the green flag, as Jonathan Goke's going to go ahead and get a big run right off the bat on Big Joe Hassert. But hey, just like sometimes with drafting tracks, he's going to have to be careful not to get too big of a run on him and let him get completely away. So after that big incident there on the backstretch, it did claim a few cars, notably Ron Hacker and George Gonzalo probably won't be able to return. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on them as the race goes along. But considering the type of accident, very thankful that only 3 cars were able to be involved. Matthew Mercer is still trying to turn some laps. So Jonathan Goke leading the field, going through the tunnel turn. Behind him, though, they are 2 wide. Big Joe Hassert and Bob Mikes. Bob Mikes, of course, has already been able to pull off a win here earlier on this year. He is running hard. He is trying to get to the inside of Big Joe Hassert and trying to get up front early and do something early in this race. And, of course, behind him is Joe Branch, who Joe Branch has his hands full with Jake Wright back there as well. So you have some big players up there in the top 5 here so far. Big Joe Hassert's going to take a look on the inside of Jonathan Goke going into turn 1.
Down into turn number 1, and Big Joe Hassert almost had a big old call with Bob Mikes down in the tunnel turn last time by. They almost connected tires. Big Joe Hassert out front at Pocono Raceway, but he's going to be challenged again on this back straightaway from Jonathan Goke down into the tunnel turn of turn number 2, followed by Bob Mikes. Bob Mikes has nowhere to go at the moment. Let's see what he's going to do with Big Joe Hassert off of turn number 2. Down into turn number 3. These guys are so close, single file. Who's that just pulled out in the bottom there?
That would have been the likes.
Joe Branch. That was Joe Branch right there. Down on the front straightaway, Jonathan Goke is trying to hold off the race lead from Joe Branch and Big Joe Hassert. The Joe and Joe show is in second place. Bob Mikes on the high side and Jake Wright, our points leader, on the bottom side of the racetrack. As there is a little gap between the top 4 cars there, Adam, or top 5.
Yeah, there certainly is. So, meanwhile, of course, up front still, of course, we got Jonathan Goke out there. Now, these guys here before too long, they probably have about a half lap. They're going to catch the lap car of Matthew Mercer, who was, of course, involved in an accident a little while ago. So, we'll watch how lap traffic plays a role in that. Big Joe Hassert in the wall.
Oh, that was a hard lick.
We're going to have to see how that affects his car here over the next little bit, but he lost some speed. Oh, somebody's slamming into the inside wall in the back of the field. Have to go back and see who that is. Drew Montz. Drew Montz just had a big incident. So far, I do not see a yellow flag on the track, but much the same, just like Big Joe Hassert, he got into that outside wall, except for him, he wasn't able to keep it up there, and it slung him down to the inside of the track. So not a pretty bad break there for Drew Montz, as he is going to go ahead and limp his car into the pits, but that changes things up front just a little bit. Joe Hassert does have a little bit of front wing damage that I can see on his car, so hopefully it doesn't end up affecting him too much in the draft. I'd be a little bit more worried about suspension damage with those big rear tires sometimes grabbing that wall. So now up front you have Jonathan Goke still, but he is now followed closely by Bob Mikes and Joe Branch not too far behind him, and Jake Wright now sitting in 4th.
Yeah, I was a little worried about Big Joe Hassert when he did hit that wall. I thought something big time was going to happen to him. But I tell you what, he's holding it nice and strong right now in the 5th position. He's regained his composure. He's riding in the draft shadows of Jake Wright, going to the inside with him. Big Joe Hassert not being bothered by that right front fender damage right there. We got a battle for that race lead, though. Bob Mikes wants it. Jonathan Goke wants it back, though. I'm telling you what, these guys are going to be swapping for the race lead like it's Daytona and Talladega, except we don't got restrictor plates.
Yeah, we certainly don't. Jonathan Goke, that's one thing that Sam was able to tell us a little bit about how these guys are going to run here for tonight, is you saw Bob Mikes try to be able to get that pass on Jonathan Goke on the inside of turn 3, and sometimes that inside pass might not be the best just because of how these cars kind of bunch up a little bit in the draft and start to understeer. So right now, we're going to have to constantly update your top 3. Top 3 right now, Jonathan Goke, Bob Mikes, and Jake Wright. Jake Jake Wright right now having to look behind him. He's got Big Joe Hassard, who's recovered now. He is running in the draft. He is going to try to get some spots back after that brush of the wall. And behind him is Joe Branch. Joe Branch having lost a couple of positions here the last few minutes.
I tell you what, Jonathan Goke had a ping spike there, and he was blinking on that back straightaway pretty bad, and that's why he was probably on the inside of the racetrack. He still is down turn 3. So far, his connection has stabilized with Bob Mikes in second, Jake Wright in third. Looks like Jake Wright doesn't even want the draft, and I don't blame him, because if you get too much speed entering the corner, it can launch you right up the racetrack.
Yeah, and what you saw there was Jonathan Goke starting to move around, trying to break a little bit of that draft behind him as he's put a little bit of distance between him and Bob Mikes. I have a feeling that won't last for too long, but still Bob Mikes is going to have a tough time trying to get around him. So we start with Jonathan Goke up front, Bob Mikes in second, taking another look on the outside of your leader right now, Jonathan Goke. He's going to cut down to the inside. He's going to have to stick his nose in the inside here, trying to go into turn 3, but probably think better of it and just stay in line. Guys, for the most part, are running nose to tail, and as soon as they say that, Bob Mikes goes a little bit wide. Jake Wright takes a look, but not going to be able to do anything with it on the exit.
Trouble. Oh my gosh, there's drivers that just had trouble. That was Joe Branch in the wall there, I believe. Or Pierre Deigel.
Here.
It was Joe Branch in the wall, actually.
Yeah, Joe Branch brushed the wall, and Pierre Deigel got into the back of him a little bit, but that sent a bunch of guys scrambling there from about 6th place on back. I don't think there's any damage on any of those cars somehow, some way, so everybody's able to continue on here as the race continues going up front with just some fantastic driving so far by the likes of Jonathan Goke being able to hold off the likes of Bob Mikes. And we've seen Bob Mikes here before. We know he's going to be a tough cat to handle.
I know there's probably much a battle for the race lead. I'm kind of looking throughout the field here. I am counting 16 cars that are at least nose to tail or side by side. That is the top 16. Actually going on top 17 now, Adam. So these guys are really keeping touch with each other, even though we're about 13 laps into this race.
Of course, we are running 100 laps here tonight. It is a 250-mile Triple Crown race for these drivers. And we're starting to get to that point of the race, Tanner, where I'm thinking we might have to start worrying about a little bit of tire wear. If we do see a caution here in the next few laps, do you think we're going to see pit stops?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you got to the point to where, oh man, I can't drive this thing anymore, I got to pit or something, then that's the chances that you just got to take, and you might gain some track position because of it.
Oh, hey, look no further. Possible pass for the lead. Will Jonathan Goke be able to get back on Bob Mikes before the start-finish line? I think Bob Mikes got him. He did by 0.003 of a second. It's entirely possible the end of the race could come down like that, but that is an all-important 2 bonus points for the likes of Bob Mikes here.
It definitely is, and he's been up there in points too, so that's a good start for him. Jonathan Goke, he's only got 1 start to the season, which he disconnected at the Watkins Glen International Road Course, and now he's having a strong run at the Pocono Raceway, wants a good start to this series, and he's really showing it. Jake Wright looked toward the inside, but Jake Wright is really patient when it really comes to any kind of racing course there, Adam.
Yeah, we brought up points just a little bit ago. Just to update on some of our other higher points guys. Look, we have some of those guys starting the back, like Chris Stouffer started 24th on the grid. He's already been able to work his way up to 8th position here. He is right now running about a second off the leader. And Jason Galvin, who started in 23rd position, has been able to work his way up to 13th. We know those guys are fast come race time, and they are trying to do their best to pick their way through the field right now.
Yeah, and another driver to add to that list on making up positions is a guy who really dodged a bullet under that first caution. That's Andrew Kinsella. He's 15th place, started 26th, so he's making up some serious ground since the drop of the green flag.
All right, and let's go ahead and go on board with...
Oh, trouble, turn 3, big wreck. Looks like Joe Branch involved. Big time, cars flipping through the air, and this is going to bring out our second caution of this race, and it looks like Joe Branch actually got loose entering turn number 3.
Yeah, a lot of big guys into that. Joe Branch went on the radio a minute ago and said, "My bad." So it's just wow, and that took out a couple of good guys right there. I do believe Jason Galvin is involved in that. So there is your second place in points.
Oh, yeah, Jason Galvin launched Vincent Bludenthal and just launched him into the catch fence of turn number 3. Good thing the catch fence stay intact here on iRacing.
We were just getting ready to go to him, but we want to ride along with Brian Greenlee here on this one and watch how close he comes to just disaster in his race. And of course, this is the Officer Down Memorial Page onboard camera here. They're going to head into turn 3, and everything is going to happen in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, everything's happening from. He didn't really make any contact with anybody. He got on the brakes, and when he got on the brakes, it just snapped loose and launched him to the grass area. So he necessarily did not hit anything there, Adam.
Yeah, exactly. And him getting into the grass and kind of sliding like that saved him from being able to incur more damage. Kind of got him away from the main part of that wreck. But luck, I know it cost him some positions, obviously, but still a lucky break. But of course, we do have the likes of Jason Galvin involved in that, Vincent Blumenthal, Samuel Raymond has damage from that incident. So, man, that could have been that could have been much worse, but definitely pretty rough on a number of guys, including the likes of Joe Branch and Jason Galvin.
Pit road is open. A bunch of leaders coming down pit road with the exception of 2 cars. That is Ryan Otis and Bob Mikes, who stayed out on the racetrack. Usually pit stops in these cars is about 6 seconds long. So let's see who's going to beat who on pit road. And I assume it's going to be a 4-tire stop for everybody and fuel. Jonathan Goke will beat Jake Seawright.
A nice race off pit road there. Jonathan Goke will, of course, retain the lead. Remember, these are going to be single-file restarts in these cars. So he's going to have sole possession of the front spot coming to the green flag here in just a couple of minutes. So with that, it obviously changes the complexion of the race a little bit. We know Joe Branch was fast, but we know if he pops into the interview room, maybe we'll be able to grab him here in a few minutes. But do you think, Tanner, that could have been the point of the run where tire wear started becoming an issue? Because he just put in the chat that he just lost it, and that certainly is how it looked on replay.
It definitely, yeah, and the tire wear can be a big, huge issue in that. And sometimes when you feel like you're going to lose it, and you kind of got to tap the brakes a little bit, sometimes that kicks out the back end of the race car and just spins you right around like a vacuum cleaner. So, and I definitely think tire wear is going to be a big key. And we were kind of opening up that window on tire wear and discussing who's going to come down for an early pit stop. And I do believe some drivers were thinking about coming down pit road to make a pit stop until that incident happened on the racetrack.
Take a look up front. Of course, Bob Mikes is now going to be up there. So excuse me for saying Jonathan Goku is going to be the leader. Bob Mikes ended up staying out, so it might be a little bit of a fuel mileage play here from those guys. And I do see somebody changing their mind about Matthew Mercer. Sorry, he has damage already from that first incident out there. So we are still one lap away from going green. Lights are out on the pace car.
Lights are on the pace car indeed. 2 cars stayed out. That is Bob Mikes and Ryan Otis. They have yet to make a pit stop any time in this race, so they're at least going to have to at least make a pit stop. But right now, since it's under caution flag, and you can actually use the clutch here on iRacing in these cars to save a little gas. So that's and especially saving a little gas like that under caution on a track like Pocono is definitely a little advantage. It can turn into a strategy play, so we'll see how this really does for Bob Mikes and Ryan Otis. I'm just curious on how the difference is going to be between the 2 tires, since you are flat out if nobody's in front of you.
Yeah, it's going to come a point to where what's going to balance out more? Worn tires and low fuel, or new tires and full of fuel? So, because those guys had to have put a ton of fuel into their cars. A ton of fuel into the cars and new tires on them. But that could definitely mix up the fuel strategy here a little bit later on in the race. We'll have to try to keep track of where these guys are pitting and when they are pitting here over the course of the next little bit. Of course, when they come across the line to take the green flag, we'll have 1/5 of this race completed, 20 laps out of 100 laps here once they hit the green flag in just a moment.
I do want to point out Brian Greenlee in third place right now behind the car that is behind Ryan Otis. Actually is a car that did not pit under this caution despite spinning out and avoiding an incident. He probably got the grass off them tires and he is ready to go. So he is a part of the same strategy as Ryan Otis and Bob Mikes as these guys are going to come take the green flag coming off turn number 3.
Yeah, don't forget that Ryan Otis wants to try to make up a little bit of ground in the standings as well. Of course, even though he won, he's still sitting in 6th position because he did miss a race start earlier on this season. So he wants to try to get up there and contend with Bob Mikes as we take the green flag. Bonus points are going to be important for them. Who wants to try to lead every lap he can. Brian Greenlee already being challenged on the outside by Jonathan Goke.
Yeah, Jonathan Goke definitely got on the loud pedal right away as soon as that pace car left for pit road. Goke already moving up to 3rd position, trying to get himself a nice launch off of turn number 1. And Brian Greenlee and Jake Wright, points leader, is battling coming off turn number 2 and down that backstretch.
Yeah, battle for the lead now, right? Going on as you've got Ryan Otis on the outside, Bob Mikes fighting back on the inside. That's going to be the preferred line through the tunnel turn, and Bob Mikes is going to be able to retain the lead. But the question is for how long? And our question might be getting answered because Jonathan Goke is already up there trying to challenge for second. Ryan Otis is going to drop down, try to hamper him just a little bit. They're both going to try to get onto the coattails of Bob Mikes here. Bob Mikes is going to lead the first lap after caution.
We thought that turn 1 would probably be the incident or part of the racetrack, but it's been turn 3 all race long. Looks like Jonathan Goke is eating these guys up little by little in the middle of the corners. He's trying to get a big run, washes up the racetrack a little bit off of turn number 1, trying to utilize that draft of Bob Mikes. Can't do it right now. Look at this on the outside for that 2nd spot up there. That is Ryan Otis trying to get that draft. He actually almost got pinched.
Yeah, what you saw there a minute ago between Bob Mikes and Jonathan Goke is something you have to be careful with, is once that car dropped down in front of Jonathan Goke, his car immediately went into an understeer condition. Now, Jonathan Goke is going to be able to get a good run on the bottom of 3 here as they get really close, but so they are able to stay off each other, but Bob Mikes has the momentum coming off 3, and that's going to carry him forward through the start-finish line.
Goke wants that race lead, and he is trying to get that race lead ever so close, ever so fast to these tires, almost making contact. Goke on the bottom, trying to, let's see if he can suck up right there. Bob Mikes has a run. Oh, almost making contact, and oh man, Mikes almost made contact with the outside wall there. Man, these guys are awfully racing pretty aggressively in these early stages here, Adam.
Yeah, and of course, Ryan Otis is still up there now, but don't look now. Brian Greenlee's getting back up in the mix of this, and Jake C. Wright's trying to ride him, getting back up to the front as well. Bob Mikes on the outside going through 3. Jonathan Goke's going to have to be careful about drifting high here, and because of that, Bob Mikes is able to get a good run coming off 3, going to the start-finish line.
That higher line down in turn number 3 seems like it's going to be the preferred line. It just seems like you get really tight on the exit of the corner if you are on the bottom, and Jonathan Goke is really... he spins it! Oh, he must hit that bumper on. Caution's out.
Let's see if anybody gets back in there. Oh, big wreck trying to avoid him. Bunch of cars in the wall. I see somebody flipping back there. Oh, that'd be Pierre Daigle.
Once again, it's one of them cases where you enter the corner of the racetrack and you just lose it. And we've talked about a nasty bump entering turn number 1, and man, he just spun it right around, even though he had fresher tires than the guys he was racing with.
Well, if this so far is going to be any indication of how things are going to go, we're in for a big shakeup in points here today.
Yeah, most definitely. And holy cow, these drivers, they were all over each other trying to avoid Jonathan Goke. What a save, by the way, from Jonathan Goke. But I tell you what.
I think he got out of that without any damage, but Pierre Daigle obviously didn't. Big Joe Hassert has some damage also. I do believe I saw Christopher involved in that incident as well. James Paulson was involved.
Oh, wow. Did Andrew Kinsella get involved in that incident? It looks like he kind of got through, but I think he did hit somebody at the tail end of that incident.
I'm looking now for you. Oh, riding along Pierre Daigle. Man, that's just a crazy ride. Looking at Andrew Kinsella, it looks like he might have been the one, I believe he hit... Dustin Wardlow and kind of launched him up a little bit, but so far no damage showing up on Andrew Kinsella's vehicle here.
Tell you what, that was such a light contact too to Dustin Wardlow, and that light contact just launched him in the air. Holy cats!
Well, and I did finally find Chris Stouffer. Of course, Chris is sitting 5th in the point standings here. He does not appear to have any damage. I think he might have just slid through that accident. So, a luck break for Chris Stouffer here. Of course, that could have been very damaging for his point hopes here today as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Chris Stouffer so far is having a great day, as you said there, Adam. So, I mean, might tip my hat to Chris Stouffer there. And he actually utilized a Brian Greenlee, tried kind of spun it a little bit in the grass area to avoid it.
So now, of course, with that, in case you're wondering, Bob Mikes is going to stay on track, but Ryan Otis and Brian Greeley are coming down the track, down pit road, along with the likes of Chris Lanini, and behind him are a bunch of cars that were involved in the accident or close to being involved in the accident. So I tell you what, so far, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of points changes here for today, and we're going to have a lot of damaged cars potentially on track as well, which could play a factor, especially later on in this race.
Yeah, there's a lot of damaged cars so far in this race, and you keep talking about points, Adam. Now, as far as an incident cap goes, if any driver gets up to an 8X on an incident cap, there is points that start being deducted. Well, I tell you, there's a couple drivers that decided to take a 1X to go through a grass area or spin her out to avoid the incident, and that might be worth it too. Take a couple X's there, but what you do really want to avoid is hitting another driver, because that'll turn into a 4X. So, but there's a lot of damaged race cars out there in the early stages of this race. We're only on lap 25 out of 100, not even halfway yet. So, and there's about 16, 15 drivers left on the lead lap.
Yeah, and of course we talked a little bit ago about Brian Greenlee and how he kind of half-spun in that caution before this. And what did he do? Well, he stayed out, right? Well, what do you think Chris Stouffer's going to do here? Well, it looks like he's going to stay out, and he might restart this race in 3rd position.
We definitely are not done with the caution flags just yet.
Well, we'll have to see. Sometimes cautions breed cautions, but when we've lost as many cars as it looks like we've lost, at least with damage, sometimes it does have a tendency to calm guys down, but sometimes not. So you're right, Tanner. It's definitely going to be something we're going to have to watch out for, especially in the middle of the pack where it seems like we've had a lot of stuff happen here today.
Yeah, definitely, and there's been drivers that started in the mid-pack and back of the pack that have really bided their time, that have dodged these incidents. Drivers like Chris Stouffer, Andrew Kinsella, Tony Schoen, and Travis Jegeliner. Those drivers started either outside the top 10, somewhere in mid-pack or back of the pack, and right now they are running in the top 5 or just sitting outside the top 5 with barely to little damage on their race cars. So far it's been a great showing from the drivers. They are really patient, and Jonathan Goke, I am showing our pole sitter, who was just involved, who started that caution right there, is so far in the 7th position, so it doesn't look like there's anything damage on that number 08 machine.
No, certainly not. But of course, same cannot be said for a lot of guys out there as far as no damage. I mean, plenty of damaged cars. It's going to be really interesting to try to keep track of.
Yeah, definitely. And so far, according to this, it's 15 cars left on the lead lap in this race. Possibly going to be 14. I'm showing David Altman, the final driver, on the lead lap. Big Joe Hazard is on the tail end of the lead lap as well, trying to get himself back into this race after hitting the wall earlier in this race off of turn number 3. Pace car lights are turned off, I believe, and we are going to take the green flag here to go back racing.
Yep, and of course an exciting race here so far today. Lots of battling up front. I have a feeling that, of course, is going to continue as once again we're mixing up who is up front, but the one constant so far this entire race has been Bob Mikes, who has pretty much occupied spot 1 or spot 2 the entire race here so far. I think he had a brief stint back in 3, and that might have been the start of the race because he started in 3rd position, but they're going to take the green flag here in just a moment. The Porsche pace car dives off, and here we go once again, Bob Mikes in first position. Jake Wright, your point leader. Once again, very consistent finishes here from Jake Wright so far this season, having not finished outside of the top 6. And of course, he's wanting to try to get his first win here for today. And behind him is Chris Stouffer.
Yep, and that battle is probably going to be for the race lead up there, but a driver that's already been on the move since the drop of the restart here has been Jonathan Goke. He's already picked up 2 spots up there in the 5th position, and it looks like Jake Wright's sucking in that draft. What will he do? Will he try to go around him, or will he just sit comfortably in his draft? He's going to go towards the inside down in turn number 3. He's going to go to the bottom. Bob Mikes, where he's been strong all race long, has been that higher side on that pavement area in turn number 3. That's what launches himself off the corner of turn 3 as he beats the point leader Jake Wright to the line. Bob Mikes so far side by side still with Jake Wright entering turn number 1. Jake Wright, having none of, is still in racy mode right now, but I tell you what, Bob Mikes so far really comfortable, loving that high line no matter where he goes, whether it's turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. He seems like he's the only driver out there that has the line figured out.
And look who's fighting back there right now. Chris Stouffer trying to go for second. He's very close to the wall there on the exit of 2. They're going to fly off into 3 here. Jonathan Goke was thinking about trying to make it 3 wide there for a second. Thinks better of it, and definitely was probably the best decision he had.
He bobbled there on the exit of turn 3, almost clipped the Chris Stouffer there. Oh, he's going to go for a pass right here. Goke, he wants to be up front. He's a racer tonight, folks.
Yeah, and why not? I mean, not a lot to lose, but some of these guys up here, they do have a ton. But one thing I am noticing is that with the amount of cars that we lost thanks to a couple of early incidents, that does seem like things have calmed down. And just as I say that, Bob Mikes pinches Jonathan Goke down. Jonathan Goke still on the inside of Bob Mikes as they're getting ready to go into turn 3. Now watch Bob Mikes here. If he's able to run his preferred line, he should get a good launch here, but it looks like Jonathan Goke.
He hit them rumble strips down there that almost launched him up the racetrack there, Adam.
Yeah, and of course, when that happened, Bob Mikes still had the momentum, was able to carry him through. Now, Jonathan Goke was able to lead that lap, but Bob Mikes is going to have the preferred line here going into 1.
Yep, and this is the same area where he spun out the last time when we had our last caution, but so far he's keeping that number 08 machine under control, and he's up there fighting for the race lead to Bob Mikes, who's been up there as well, along with Jonathan Goke and Jake Wright. Top 3 have been in the top 5 this whole race, and we did have a mix-up ever since for 4th on back.
And of course, this all happened because I was saying that things were trying to calm down. Well, obviously not. So Jonathan Goke is going to retain sole possession of that lead as he continues to try to run the bottom going through 3. Bob Mikes is able to keep his line going through 3 as well and have a little bit of momentum, but it's not going to be enough to carry him to the lead through the start-finish line, but might be enough to carry him back to the lead going into 1.
Adam, have you ever told a driver to ever calm down if you were spotting for him and he actually listened? Bob Mikes! Oh, Jake Wright! Huge accident down in turn number 1. Cars flying. Point leader Jake Wright tried to miss the accident, got on the brakes. That's what spun him out. But Bob Mikes was the first car to spin. That's going to bring on another caution in this race.
Tough break for all of those guys.
Holy smokes, what happened here? He must have hit that bump down in turn number 1, and it just sent him right around.
It did, and of course, nothing Bob Mikes could do. It just carried him back up onto the track, and just nowhere for Chris Stouffer or for Jake Wright to go to, and just a tough break for those guys.
Man.
We're going to ride on board the Officer Down Memorial Page cam here with Greenlee. He's going to have a front row seat here with what happened. You see them dive down in the corner, and that back end just come around on Bob Mikes.
Greenlee, yeah, I mean...
Once again, takes it into the grass, but avoids damage. So,
I'm getting lucky on he's getting lucky through these, but he'll take a 1X for it.
so let's... Thinking about the accidents that we've had here so far today now, your points leader, Jake Wright, involved in this accident here. Jason Galvin, involved in an accident earlier. Bob Mikes, involved in that accident here. Joe Branch, involved in that accident earlier. And Chris Stouffer, involved in that accident that just happened. So all 5 of your top 5 in points have been involved in some form of incident here today. As it's just... it's bad, I mean, for some of these guys here for today. And if we look further back, we don't have a graphic for it, but let me read through the rest of the top 10 in points for you, and you can tell, you know, from who we've talked about so far, who's been involved in some sort of accident. So Ryan Otis so far is not. In fact, I believe he is going to be sitting in 4th position here. So he is the cleanest car possibly out of the top 10 points. James Krahula, who is not here with us tonight, running in 7th in the points. Tony Schuin, I don't believe Tony has been involved in anything. He's running in 3rd. Okay, so Ryan Otis and Tony Schuin, but George Anzaldo was involved in the accident earlier, and Peter Daigle was involved earlier as well. That is your top 10 in points, folks, and you only have 2 cars that are still running out of the entire top 10.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy information you read off there, Adam. Holy cow! I mean, on a race fan standpoint, whew, and I tell you what, I've seen a lot of crazy accidents in real life and virtual racing. And if this was real life, man, that could have been almost like a fatal accident there. I mean, just the way those cars just launched. And I tell you what, Chris Stouffer was the biggest guy that I seen. That, wow, it's just amazing.
Well, you know, and if this is your first time watching this Lionheart Retro Series, this is not because of a lack of skill or anything else from these drivers. These are some of the best drivers you're going to find driving these cars. It is just, I think Pocono has it out for these guys, and our director Joe Peak does too. I'm not going to use the exact phrasing he used, but it is definitely a tough track, and this is part of the reason why they call this the tricky triangle here. It is just eating up points leaders here for today, and none of these incidents are really anything anybody had any control over.
No, and usually the incidents that we've seen today has only been a single car incident, and people just kind of getting collected into that. We've seen drivers hit the wall off of turn number 3 quite a few times, and spins entering turn 3, and now we're kind of getting the vibe down in turn number 1 on drivers hitting some kind of bump down there as the tires start to wear a little bit. Depending upon how aggressively you are with the car, it just snaps it right around. So that's the only 2 corners today that's really bitten many of these drivers today. Turn 2 is like the safest corner on the racetrack, despite other than pit road.
Well, which is totally different than usual. Of course, while we've been talking here, Bob Mikes did pull off onto pit road. He finally took his pit stop. That's going to leave Ryan Otis in the lead here, followed by somebody that hasn't ran up front yet, Travis Yerkeliner. Back there as well, and so definitely 2 guys that haven't had a chance to run up front yet. But of course, for Ryan Otis, sitting in 6th in points and having missed a race earlier on. Now, remember, these guys do get 2 drop weeks. It is a long season. This season goes all the way into November. These guys do get 2 drop weeks. So the missing a race here so far might not hurt Ryan Otis, but it definitely, if he can make it up for him. Hey, let's go ahead and talk while we got a moment here. Lights are off in the pace car, so we'll make it quick, but let's go ahead and drag Bob Mikes down here and talk to him real quick. Bob, tough break for you, man. Of course, had a good run going for you, but it ultimately wasn't meant to be.
Oh yeah, I was getting my fuel strategy played out. I was hoping to pit somewhere around, hopefully lap 50. It was gonna be a big stretch, but God, I thought going in turn 1, I avoided all the bumps I could, but I guess I forgot one.
Yeah, and it looked like because of that bump, it just kind of snapped loose on for you. And I guess at that point, you're just kind of along for the ride, huh?
Yeah, I was trying to lock it down, and I was doing a pretty good job, but too bad it came locked down in the middle of everyone's path.
Well, of course, you know, here tonight, the trouble seems to be striking all the points leaders. So you're not going to be alone, kind of in that scramble there. I mean, so as far as the rest of the race, who do you think looks the strongest out there here right now?
Don't want to say it, but Gok. Gok is Gok's the guy right now. He's definitely really fast. It's going to be the matter of, will he be able to hold everyone back coming out of the final turn on the last lap?
All right. Well, hey, Bob, appreciate you coming in here and talking with us. We're going to get back to racing here as Ryan Otis is taking the green flag. And, of course, Bob Mikes mentioned Jonathan Goke. Jonathan Goke making a play on second here already, diving into turn one.
Yep, Jägerliner was on the high side, and he's going to fall back to third place over Jonathan Goke. Jonathan Goke has one more position until he retakes the race lead. That is Ryan Otis. Fourth place, Ryan, there has been wreck avoidance pretty much all race long, and that is Andrew Kinsella in fourth, started 26th. Behind him is Tony Schoen in the 31 machine. That is your top five at the moment, and those two drivers started deep in the field as we got a battle for the race lead, entering turn number 3.
Yeah, here goes Jonathan Goke going down into 3. Now, is he going to be able to keep up the momentum going up, running back up? Ryan Otis does have a little bit more momentum, but I don't think it's going to carry him to the start-finish line here. He's not going to lead a lap under green just yet, but he is going to try to retake the lead going into 1.
He definitely will try to do it in turn number 1 as Ryan Otis is out front. Jägerliner's sitting in third, but that battle for the race lead, Goke is going to go back to the bomb side of the racetrack. I'm sure he's going to try to want to take the high line around next time he hits turn 3, but he's got one more turn to reach that turn. That is tunnel turn number 2, which is Indianapolis Motor Speedway banking. Down in turn number 2. Yeah, it's getting exciting here. Oh, close to the wall. Almost Otis there off of turn number 2.
Yeah, Ryan Otis knows how to run close to that wall, get every little bit out of that racetrack that he can, especially off the tunnel turn. But behind him, Andrew Kinsella looking a little bit racy as he's fought his way to third position. Jonathan Goke's enough out in front that you might see him weave a little bit, try to break some of that draft. And Ryan Otis is not able to get back up to his rear wing, going down into turn 1 here. As they're going to dive down there, Jonathan Goke's going to have the preferred line. This is kind of a good situation for Jonathan Goke if he's able to try to get a little bit of a run. He wants Andrew Kinsella to get up there, start racing with Ryan Otis, and maybe try to get up in front even a little bit more. But it's not going to happen just yet as Ryan Otis is going to take a look going into the tunnel turn.
Top 4 cars are pretty close to nose to tail here, as close as you can get it. Tony Schoen trying to get into that mix. He's in the top 5 and so far in 5th place. Ryan Otis out front. Goke's going to challenge him once again down turn number 3 on that bomb side of the racetrack, getting really close to that rumble strip. If you hit any part of that rumble strip, Adam, it can definitely fling you right up the racetrack. So that's something you really got to watch out for at a high rate of speed here. You're going about 170, 180 miles an hour in these corners.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that Ryan Otis and Jonathan Goke here are going to keep swapping the lead for a little bit. So, hey, let's take advantage of the green flag here and try to talk about some of these guys that are still on the racetrack. Of course, you got your leader right now with Ryan Otis is still trying to go into turn 1. Ryan Otis has been able to fight his way back up from the he started in 9th, and of course, trading the lead off and on here with Jonathan Goke. Now, Jonathan Goke's going to take back the lead. He was running in second ago. He's been up front pretty much all day long and probably going to remain that way. He started in first, and he's going to do his best to try to finish in first. So behind those two is going to be Andrew Kinsella. We've talked about Andrew and his wreck avoidance here for today. Well, what has it earned him? It's earned him up 23 spots from where he finished. Just watching those guys weave down the front straightaway. So Andrew Kinsella definitely fighting for every little bit of position that he can, and I have a little bit of excitement getting up there. Behind him, Travis Jägerliner. Travis is up 8 positions from where he started. Right now, he's hanging on to 4th. A little bit of rear wing damage, but doesn't look like it's hurting him too much just yet. We'll have to see if it does, if things do end up spreading out here. But these guys right now clicking off about 49-second laps. Behind Travis, you're going to find Tony Schoen. Tony, right now, running 8th in your points. Him and Ryan Otis are the only 2 in your top 10 in points that have not been involved in some sort of accident or just simply not here tonight. So, Tony Schoen and Ryan Otis are definitely going to be the 2 ones that are going to be looking to make the biggest gains here for this afternoon. Behind him, Brian Greenlee. We'll ride on board with Brian Greenlee here for a minute as we go on the Officer Down Memorial page cam. Brian, of course, we're going to be talking with Brian. This is going to be a special interview. I guarantee you, at the end of this race, you're going to want to stick around, and we're going to talk with Brian coming up here in about 60 laps, running the 62 machine here for this afternoon. Behind him, Stephen Pauly. Stephen Pauly's been able to keep up there. He's running in 7th position. Stephen, of course, running that blue Lotus 79. He's up 15 positions from where he started. He started in 22nd position here on this afternoon. And and Chris Lanini back there as well, running in the Stevens draft. He's had a good, clean race, hasn't been involved in too much out there. He's up 20 positions from where he started at. Going back, have to go back a little bit back behind these guys. You're going to find Rory Collins. He is up 20 positions, but he does have a little bit of wing damage as he was involved in one of the earlier, he does have a little bit of wing damage, a little bit of nose damage, but not as much as the car I was just looking at, who we'll talk about in just a second. Big Joe Hassert is back there. Joe, tough break for Joe. Joe was involved in one of the big incidents earlier on, and where has it left him? Well, it's left him back in 10th position. Of course, he has fallen back from that starting position of second. Those are all the cars on the lead lap, but we only got a handful more that aren't on the lead lap. We want to talk about them as well here, just to give them a little bit of airtime. Robert Bluen is out there. Robert has a little bit of front wing damage. Thanks to that, he is currently running one lap down. David Altman. David Altman's going to end up being one of the soldiers of this race. He has got one torn up front end on that Lotus 79. But he's going to try to stay out there and get every little spot that he can here for this afternoon. Of course, he does have 3 starts, but he's sitting 33rd in points. So he wants to try, even finishing in 12th position is going to be a good points day for him. So he's going to stay out there and try to turn every lap he can. Now, the other soldier of the race that could possibly be is going to be Matthew Mercer. Matthew Mercer is 5 laps down, but if looking at that car, it's a miracle he's still out there and able to turn laps. Of course, he's about 5 seconds off the pace, and the leaders will be coming up on him here very quick. But of course, Matthew Mercer will probably stay out of the way and just turn laps and try to get points. So back up front, Jonathan Goke still holding off the likes of Ryan Otis out there. Of course, Jonathan Goke running those blue STP colors out there, just trying to keep up. Tanner?
Yeah, definitely the top 2 cars on the racetrack right now, Ryan Otis and Jonathan Gokar, have been the only 2 drivers that have actually been swapping for position. Everybody else behind has just been riding single file and not even taking a chance to try to pass anybody. They're just riding comfortably in line and being really patient and keeping in touch with the race leaders. So it's just been pretty much a Jonathan Goke and Ryan Otis show pretty much up front of the racetrack, unless Andrew Kinsella decides to do something with it. He's going to try on the bottom here, see if he can get maybe a little run here, but I don't think he's going to try to really battle extremely hard with Ryan Otis. Jonathan Goke, the man of the show at Pocono Raceway.
Yeah, very, very strong showing from Jonathan Goke here today. So that bodes well for him. And I'm not sure what I was hearing over the race control traffic, but I'm wondering if Matthew Mercer was indeed told that, come on in, buddy, your day is done, which great job on turning the laps that you did. You're not going to fall any further than what you are right now. So so good job at least on him for at least trying to stay out there and do what he can with the cards that he was given here this afternoon. Of course, back up front now, once again, battle for the lead. Jonathan Goke on the inside of Ryan Otis, but Ryan Otis is on the outside of turn 3. Might have a little bit of momentum, but Jonathan Goke is going to be able to slide up in front of him. And Jonathan Goke, that rear wheel, maybe a little bit nervous about trying to tap the wall, but he's able to hold on to the lead through the start-finish line, even though Ryan Otis is going to have a good look on the inside as they keep on going down into 1.
Did we say what the fuel window was for these drivers if we did have any kind of green flag pit stops?
Well, the fuel window, I believe, is roughly about 35 laps for these guys. So that's let me double check that in my notes real quick if you give me a minute. But I do believe that's the case. Yeah, yes. So 30 to 35 laps, you're going to be able to run on a full tank of fuel.
All right, with that being said there, Adam, there is one driver, and he is sitting in the top 5. He's sitting in 4th right now. Travis Jegeliner, it's been 28 laps, and that's including caution laps since he has visited pit road. So his fuel window is going to be opening up pretty soon. Ryan Otis is sitting there with 22 laps since last time he visited pit road. So those 2 drivers are the only drivers that has been 20 laps or more out on the racetrack, but that is including caution. So you could probably save a little gas under the caution flag.
Well, good job keeping track of that because, well, if there's one thing that Pocono has been famous for in the past, it's definitely been fuel mileage races, and we could definitely see something like that here for today.
And it's hard to save fuel here at Pocono, whether you're driving NASCAR or IndyCar, because of these long straightaways, and you have to stay in the gas. The only time you could probably maybe hit the clutch a little bit there is probably in the corners of the racetrack.
Yeah, do me a favor and say NASCAR one more time.
NASCAR.
Okay, because when you said it before, it sounded like NASCAR. You know,
NASCAR,
I had to give you a hard time.
But I mean, driving a Lotus 79 compared to a NASCAR stock car, it's entirely two different things. You're driving a 3,400-pound race car in these corners like Pocono compared to these Lotus 79s, which is much lighter, which allows the car to go faster, but it can scary break loose on you as these drivers are trying to break the drat on these long straightaways here. Jonathan Goke doing a great job trying to do that.
Meanwhile, up in front, one of these guys, they're coming up on David Daltman, and David Daltman has been told to go ahead and take it to pit road here to let the leaders by and possibly try to get a little bit of his damage fixed. But Jonathan Goke right now definitely doing his best to try to stay up there over the likes of Ryan Otis. He drives down. Watch how far he dives. He's going all the way down to that checkerboard, going down there near the pit wall as he's trying to break that draft and trying to break every little bit of momentum that Ryan Otis has. Is a dive now. So,
I'm seeing a little blinking action from Andrew Kinsella. That's not good. You don't want any kind of connection issues on these high-speed racetracks.
Well, hey, I tell you what, I know it's under green, but hey, let's go ahead and bring him. You know the name. Why? Because, well, you're an avid viewer of GSRC, and of course, some of the races here on the Lotus 79, you've heard Samuel Raymond with the call. Well, Samuel, of course, things didn't end up quite the way you wanted them here for tonight. Tough break, buddy.
Yeah, no, I dropped to the back right around a few laps before that lap 18 big one happened. We went into turn 3. There was really only me and a couple other cars around me, but by the time we came through the turn, there was really only one lane, and so the car behind me followed me through the lane, but we're both trying to get woed up from, 180 mile an hour. We got into each other. I got a piece of a wall. I didn't get much of a wall, were it to be a stock car, we would have just gone into the pits, pulled out some fenders, and done, but unfortunately with the Lotus 79, you can't do that.
No, you can't. But, while you're out there, I mean, it seems terrifically fun to be out there in these cars, though.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely it was. I qualified 10th, and I thought I was completely out on my league there. I was more worried about when I was up there running in the pack in 10th place than when I was running at the back at 25th. I expected to be involved in an incident in the first 5 laps. Car setup was a little loose, so I think, some people were complaining about that. That's what led to many big wrecks early on in the race. Honestly, I kind of liked it. I mean, it does make it a challenge to drive on the warm tires. I definitely wish I was still out there.
And speaking of those worn tires, one of the questions that we were kind of wondering, of course, the big bump in turn 1, and it happens later on when the tires do get worn. About how long does it take the tires to get worn before that becomes a major issue?
For me, in practice, it was about 15 or 20 laps, and the only way I could find to really overcome it was to just feather the throttle while I was running through the turn, or even to put it in 5th gear. I was running 4th gear most of the way around. The problem is, I think Bob Mikas mentioned it during his interview early in the broadcast, is there's not just one set of bumps, and once you think you're through the bumps, there's a kind of another set right at the end of a turn that can throw you off if I was about to say if you're not ready for it, but sometimes even if you're ready for it, it just takes the car and snaps it around, and that's just a combination of the car-track combo. It's part of a challenge. Unfortunately, it's bit several drivers out there tonight.
Well, Sam, of course, we always love hearing from you, so you're welcome to stick around as long as you want, help us with the call, or you can get out. It's perfectly up to you. Man, tough break again here for tonight. We're really hoping the best for you, and of course, thanks for all your help with the series and everything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I am going to head out, Adam, because the more I watch the broadcast, the more I'm upset about thinking how high I could be finishing were I to have avoided all the incidents. But I think I'm ranked in 21st place right now, and were you to tell me I would have pulled a 21st place finish out of 31 cars at an oval course, yeah, I'll take that. We'll pack up and move on to Montreal in the number 63 GSRC car, and enjoy watching the broadcast. Just wish I was part of it.
All right, well, have a good night, Sam. Always good to talk to you. And as we wrap this up, it looks like we got some pit stops going on. Who do we got? I see Andrew Kinsella down there. Who else is coming back there behind him?
Tony Schoen.
Tony Schoen. David Altman is in that car in front of them that you see there. They're going to pit right next to each other. Tony Schoen's kind of in an odd angle in his pit box. That might give him a little bit of trouble getting out, but not too much. Just slows him down a little bit, but he's still going to be well within Andrew Kinsella's draft here when he comes out. But here we go. Pit stop games are beginning, and of course you got to think that Travis Jägerliner might be thinking about coming in soon along with Ryan Otis. Do you think, Tanner?
Yeah, Travis has been out there, and that's including caution laps, folks, for 36 laps since he's last visited pit road. So if you count the caution laps, subtract a couple numbers off there, that would be his fuel window. So he is right there for Travis Jägerliner. And Ryan Otis has been 30 laps so far, so he's actually starting to get into that fuel window area. Drivers who could probably stay out there longer is Jonathan Goke, Brian Greenlee, and Chris Lalani. Those drivers have been, last time they visited pit road has been about 20 laps ago. So those drivers can stay out there just a little while longer.
Well, of course, what pit stops could also do is really kind of help break up the field just a little bit. As you look at Andrew Kinsella and Tony Schoen, Tony Schoen was kind of falling a little bit back off Andrew Kinsella, maybe even a little bit more than I thought. So that's very well something that could happen with pit stops here as we go through the day. But these guys definitely aren't done pitting yet. They are not able to go the distance from here. We're looking at a window of about 30 to 35 laps, of course, as we were talking about with Travis Jägerliner. So with those pit stops, man, that could give us a good indication right there, Tanner, as you're bringing it up. With those pit stops, you burn less fuel under yellow. That gave us a good indication of how far Ryan Otis is going to be able to go here as well. As you've seen your top three on the screen there right now, your top three is Jonathan Goke, Ryan Otis, and Travis Jägerliner. Travis about 0.6 off Jonathan Goke.
You talked about Tony Schoen losing a little bit of momentum from Andrew Kinsella. I bet that little odd angle into his pit box had a lot to do with the separation between him and Andrew Kinsella. But so far, I think he's riding okay with Andrew so far. But yes, Jonathan Goke can stay out there a little while longer. And I think Ryan Otis, a couple more laps for Ryan Otis. Travis, though, man, oh man, he's been out there for a long time, including caution laps. And he should be visiting pit road anytime now. So far, no calls have been made. No calls have been made for Travis to come down pit road, but I'm sure he'll be coming down pit road when he can. He does have information on how much fuel he does have in that Lotus 79 machine. So it might be this time by. We'll have to wait and see as the battle for the lead continues out on the racetrack between Jonathan Goke and Ryan Otis.
Yeah, and of course those guys are going to be trying to lead here pretty much almost for the rest of the day. Of course, granted, we don't know how pit stops are going to affect that, so I could be just eating my words here in a little bit, but definitely putting on a good show here with these guys. And of course, we're still out there running with, I believe, 13 cars on the track, with your top three. You can throw a blanket over top of them here between Jonathan Goke, Ryan Otis, and Travis Jägerliner. Fourth position right now does belong to Brian Greenlee. Brian is still out there running strong along with Chris Lanini, and that's going to wrap up your top five with those two running nose to tail as well, doing a good job there in the back as well.
Yeah, the only deal with Brian Greenlee is he's about 5.5 seconds away from the top three drivers, so he's got a pretty good gap right now. Working with clean air at the moment, no pressure from behind and no pressure from in front. So Brian Greenlee's got the track to himself, and he's riding the preferred groove out there in turn number 3, the higher line. That is the preferred groove, really.
It's one of those things that it's a momentum thing to try to stay on the outside of some of these turns here, and also I do have a little bit of an asphalt patch up there that I think does give you a little bit more grip. Yeah, depending on how they have the surface modeled there. I'm wondering here. I'm looking at Travis Jägerliner. Is Travis going to make the stop this time by? Let's see here.
Yeah, he's a little over 40 laps since he last visited pit road, but you do have to count the caution laps within that, so within that window. So, and right now, not at the moment, not this time by.
Well, of course, while we've been talking here, we have slipped past halfway. We're now at about 42 laps to go in this, remember, the Fallen 250 miler race here this afternoon at Pocono. If you've just joining us a little bit late, a couple of big multi-car incidents that just were the kind that really weren't anybody's fault that has pretty much decimated your leaders in the point standings here for today. And so you're going to be looking at the likes of Ryan Otis out there. He's really going to be trying to make some gains in the points here for this afternoon. He was sitting 6th going into this race. He very well could be, he's definitely going to be in the top 5 by the end of this thing if he's able to stay up front in trouble-free.
Here we go.
So here comes Travis Jagerliner coming down pit road, 3rd position coming down.
60 miles an hour is the pit road speed. Try getting that going down from 175 to 60 miles an hour just like that. So Travis is out there on pit road. Let's see what he can do. Nice stop into the pit box. That's always important there. He's probably going to take 4 fresh Goodyears. That's what you want to do. And a full tank of fuel. It's going to take about 6 seconds to do all that. He's out and away, getting out to the wide out pit road, and he's out.
That is one thing that Pocono has, is definitely a wide pit road, and helps out with the green, with the yellow flag pit stops when everybody comes down at the same time. But definitely green flag pit stops, you're kind of all by your lonesome on quite a bit of asphalt back there. So, but Travis is able to get back out there, and of course he'll fall back a few positions, but he is on a different pit cycle than everybody else at this point, and definitely playing a little bit on the fuel game. Why? Because Travis just came in and he just ran, what do we figure, Tanner, 41, 42 laps?
Yeah, it was the 42 lap mark.
Okay, and we got 40 laps to go. So, hold on, he's off the pace. He might have gotten a penalty.
That's not good.
Oh, that very well is going to take that his idea of a fuel strategy win out the window here.
And folks, it's not a pass-through penalty like you would see on TV or anything like that. He has to do a stop and go. So he has to stop in his pit box, serve that penalty, and then go. That is the penalty on iRacing that it gives you if you speed on pit road. So this really, Travis, it strikes him at Pocono with a pit road speeding penalty, and it kills his chances for top 3.
Yeah. So anyway, so back up front, Jonathan Goke still retaining the lead right now over Ryan Otis. You have to wonder if Ryan Otis is going to try to pull any kind of fuel games here himself. Could he just be waiting patiently in Jonathan Goke's draft at this point, just trying to save as much as he can before he has to come to pit road?
Well, let's see here. Let's look at the threads here. It was about 42 laps, and that's including caution laps, folks, for Travis when he came on pit road. Right now, Ryan Otis is working on 38, and Jonathan Goke 31. And it's a 35, if usually under a green flag conditions, it's 35 laps until you pit. So 100 minus 35 is 65 laps, is lap 65. So if you can make it past lap 65, you can make it to the end. I mean, it's a good strategy to try to save fuel just a little bit.
Well, there you go. Our fuel mileage master, Tanner Sharp. We're going to start calling you that, by the way. So if you're apparently good with math and numbers, and, well, you know, I almost have a math minor in college, and I can't add or subtract 2 plus 2. So, Jonathan Goke, you got to wonder, though, him running out front, though, is he burning off more fuel? Now, who's going to have to take the less fuel on their pit stop, though, too? That could play a factor as well. How much time is spent on pit road? Now, it's only a couple of seconds, but even if it's a few tenths of a second, that could make all the difference here in this thing.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing our director actually just pointed out, that's a very good point. Speeding penalty in these cars have no pit limiter like the regular DW Indy cars do. So that's one thing to keep an eye on as well there, Adam.
Absolutely. Of course, these cars were built and designed and all that other wonderful stuff before the era of pit limiters and all those fancy electronic gadgets that they've got nowadays in some of these cars. This is definitely one of the last generations of man and machine. Jonathan Goke is high, but Ryan Otis coming down pit road. Second place driver coming down.
And he's going to come down right here, and this is just, oh man, this is right outside the window of, he's actually coming on exactly on lap 65. And if this stays green to the end, he is right on the window on either making it to the finish or not making it to the finish, but that depends if this stays green to the end. Jonathan Gogue already by himself out there on the racetrack down in turn number 2, as Ryan Otis is going to take a pit stop. Don't speed on pit road now like Travis did. It is 60 miles an hour, and I think he is okay for Ryan Otis. So that was good management on the speed on pit road.
Okay, so now the next question is, Mr. Pit Stops and everything else, when did Brian Greenlee and Chris Lanini come in?
All right, and this, you got to remember, this is including caution laps as well. Brian Greenlee, 33 laps since he last visited pit road, and Chris Lanini, 33 laps. So those guys are just about in the same window as the race leaders. Now, give or take, these drivers don't really think about when they were last on pit road, but we have the information up here on when they were last on pit road. So with that being said, right now, since we're past that lap 65 mark, you could probably much pit right now and make it to the end.
Well, one thing I'd be looking at is probably Brian Greenlee and Chris Lee coming in at about the same time. They're running about 12 seconds off your leader, Jonathan Gogue, and they need something to happen, but they are definitely not out of the window of having a fantastic finish here for today as you're riding aloud on your Officer Down Memorial Page onboard camera right there with Brian Greenlee with the looking back at Chris going in that 92 machine out right above his rear wing. I would not be surprised to see these two guys come down pit road together. They seem like they've been running well together since that last caution that we've had. Since we've gone back to green, these two have been pretty much stuck together, just like how you see now. So with that, let's round out. Granted, we are in the middle of a pit cycle here, but let's talk about who's on the lead lap real quick. Of course, you got your leader, Jonathan Gogue. We've talked about a lot about Jonathan Gogue dominating a race. Like, oh, Brian Greenlee is around.
Oh no, and so far we are staying green flag racing.
He did not touch anything again. He stops about 2 feet off that inside Armco, and he's going to get a break from a yellow flag.
Caution is out. Yep. I was just going to say, the reason why the caution did not come out is because he was spinning in the grass area, and it did not trigger a caution where he was on the racetrack spinning. But so far, it looks like the apron part of it, the asphalt part of it down there, triggered the caution flag. And this is going to separate pit stops just a tick.
And the bad part about it is it traps Travis Jagerliner, who might have been able to get by without it. But well, no, he's going to be able to take the wave around here, too. I bet he doesn't come down pit road. So never mind that train of thought. Completely forgot I've said anything here the last 10 seconds. But Brian Greenlee is definitely going to get the lucky, if there is a lucky dog award as far as just being lucky, Brian Greenlee is going to get it here for today.
I don't know. Did Tony Schoen and Andrew Kinsella go a lap? I don't know. They did not. So I do believe those guys are actually going to try to stay out here. And if they do stay out, and I do believe it's an oval rule. You don't get a wave around if lead lap cars stay out.
That is true. So Travis Jagerliner might be trapped a lap down here, depending on what happens with those guys and where specifically he's at on the track as well, too, compared to those guys and where Travis is in relation to the leader. So we'll have to see how that shakes out once everybody gets behind the pace car here in just a moment. But I think that's the big loser in this. Possibly could be Travis Jagerliner, who could have gotten at least back on the lead lap and hoped for a late race caution. And unfortunately, that might not happen for him. He might get trapped a lap down with that speeding penalty just a little while ago. So as we were talking about, definitely not over yet. We could be in for an exciting final, probably about 29 laps here before they go back to green.
Yeah, I know, and I know there's only about 6 guys on the lead lap right now, but those 6 guys that are on the lead lap could probably come down and take advantage of some 4 fresh tires and try to race it to the end, since that was the longest green flag stint of the day.
Yeah, and I know our director Joe Peak probably wants to take a break here in just a minute. So one thing is, let's see who all comes down pit road, who all doesn't come down pit road, and let them get off, and then we'll take a quick break. As you see, Jonathan Goke, we knew he couldn't go the rest of the way, so he is coming down. He is going to be followed. I see Brian Greenlee, of course, coming down as well. We knew he couldn't go the rest of the way, and behind him, of course, Tony Schuin, Andrew Kinsella coming down pit road. So where is that going to leave Travis Jagerliner in relation to the cars that are going to stay out? So I see Ryan Otis up there, and in front of him is Travis Jagerliner, Big Joe Hassert, David Altman, Rory Collins, Stephen Paulney, but Chris Lanini is going to be at the front of this field, and he did not come down pit road, so those guys are going to get trapped a lap down. So now that we kind of have an idea of how that's going to get shaped out, let's go ahead and take what is most likely going to be our final break of the day here. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Pocono Raceway here, folks. Adam, I think your mic got a little sticky there.
Oh, man, I've been dealing with mic trouble all night with my push-to-talk buttons here. Hey, you see Ryan Otis up front. One thing that we were watching was the potential for Travis Jagerliner to take his, and the likes of Rory Collins, I think, would have been in line for it, too, to get back on the lead lap, but they ended up coming down pit road, I do believe, and that ended up letting, they were in front of Ryan Otis, so they were not able to get the wave around. So we are going to restart this race, I believe, with 7 cars on the lead lap for the final 30 laps here as they get ready to take the green.
Here we go. Pace car lot. Once it goes off, it's pretty much green flag from there on out. Green flag, about 29 laps to go at Pocono.
Yeah, these guys are definitely going down the home stretch, and what I imagine you're going to see is much of the same with Ryan Otis and Jonathan Goke trading off the lead back and forth, but you do have the likes of Andrew Kinsella, who's been able to show a little bit of muscle and staying up there at times, and you got Tony Schuin behind him, and then Brian Greenlee is going to round out your top 5 here as they start going down the first lap here, down into the tunnel turn, first lap after the restart, that is looks like Jonathan Goke is going to go ahead and retake the lead here. But Ryan Otis should have a little bit of momentum here. We'll have to watch.
Yeah, just a little bit of momentum. Those guys are really going to trade off the race lead pretty much from here on out. Andrew Kinsella has been really back how we had in that long green flag stint, sitting there really patiently. And then you got Tony Schoen's been in fourth, and Brian Greenlee at top 5 right there. Brian Greenlee is going to go underneath for a fourth place spot underneath Tony Schoen. He's actually going to back off here, so it looks like it's a little playing the patient game right now.
Well, and one thing that yellow did is watching Jonathan Goke look a little loose there coming out of one. One thing that yellow flag probably did was take fuel strategy out of the thought process at all. So unfortunately, Tanner, you're going to have to put down the pen and paper as much as I know how you like that. It's like Jonathan Goke fight back on the inside here. Now, we've watched turn 3 a number of times here for today, and it's probably going to be critical as we get closer to the end of the race that they're able to stay nose and tail like this. Is sometimes that outside line's able to get just a really, really good run. So if you're coming down to the line going into turn 3, where do you want to be, first or second?
Oh boy, that is a really tough one. I want to be in the lead and have that high line in turn 3. That way I can get a good launch off the exit of the corner. But we have seen drivers pass for the race lead, like Jonathan Goke on the bottom side of the racetrack, really aggressively too, and made a clean pass doing it. So, but although I would try to be the race leader, but there's one question I have to call out on the racetrack here is how come Chris Lalani did not come down with the race leaders, because right now he is a big separation from the leaders and can't really catch those guys since he's battling side by side with another driver back there.
Yeah, one of the many questions that we have about a couple of guys and their decisions there on that last pit stop. But, of course, we'll wonder about that later with this race going. These guys probably put on a show. Now, the hider that I'm going to say these guys race, that they're not able to take their preferred lines in the corner. That's allowing Andrew Kinsella to at least hang on to them. He's not really gaining at least a little bit. He's gained about a tenth of a second here the last little bit, but he's not losing either. And the same with Tony Schoen behind them. So, Andrew Kinsella definitely wants to get in here and try to mix it up with these guys. And I think if Andrew can do that, I think you're going to start seeing the likes of Tony Schoen get in here as well. And that very well could make a four-horse race for the lead here. And, of course, if all 4 of those guys get up there, you don't know what's going to happen with Brian Greenlee. And Brian Greenlee can try to get up here and sneak a few positions away.
In the closing stages of a race, Adam, I tell you what, those top 2 drivers are swapping positions, right? So right now they're slow dancing with each other. You got 3rd and 4th place, Andrew Kinsella and Tony Schoen. They're watching those guys slow dance, and they know someone's going to step on someone's shoes up there, and something might happen. That's probably why they're sitting back there.
Yeah, the old, our colleague Soup, what he likes to call the popcorn position. Just kind of sitting back there, just eating some popcorn, ready for something to pop and happen for you.
Oh, yeah, and I tell you what, Tony Schoen and Andrew Kinsella are within those 2 drivers. Schoen is riding just in the draft of Kinsella, and Kinsella is just trying to ride within the top 2 draft. He's actually purposely just backing off just a little bit, trying to give those top 2 drivers some kind of room, because if any of those 2 drivers make some sort of contact, they could probably try to fling right by. And we know how Andrew Kinsella is very good at flinging by wrecks. We've already seen like 2 of them today from him.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've definitely been kind of on the lucky side of things at times here today. Man, these I just can't get over these guys, how they're swapping positions like this at a track like Pocono, because it is not the easiest thing in the world to do and drive this close together. But Andrew Kinsella and Tony Schoen now back up there. And, of course, Brian Greenlee has been able to gain about 0.2 of a second now on the leader with all these guys up here starting to try to mix it up.
Folks, it looks easy on TV, but it ain't easy within these cockpits of these race cars. I tell you what, they, especially with force feedback turned on, they are a handful to drive.
Well, these guys right now are also starting to get into that point now where we're getting about 7 laps into the run here after the caution lights were extinguished and the green flag came back out. And so according to what Sam was telling us, we're going to be looking at probably about another 6 or 7 laps here before these guys might be starting to fight loose race cars. Now, that's going to come down to possibly a handling show, who has the best handle on this custom fixed setup that these guys use here for this series. Look at the Brian Greenlee back there. Let's go ahead and ride along with him real quick on the Officer Down Memorial page, Cam, and he is trying to go ahead and make a run for that 4th position. It looks like he is now going to be on the inside of Tony Schuin. No, he's going to go ahead and tuck right back behind him going into 1, get a little sniff of that draft before he dives down into the corner, hits the bumper down there just a little bit. He's able to keep the car straight, though, as now your top 5 are pretty much running nose to tail.
Brian Greenlee actually attempted, and he caught Tony Schoen. And Tony Schoen's been in the sniff of the draft of the top 3 since the drop of the restart. But Brian Greenlee actually finally caught Schoen and has a draft, so he's in the shot seat to try to win this race if anything happens up towards the front up there. But one interesting note: Stephen Pauly and Chris Lalonde have not gained on these top 5 drivers whatsoever, despite the top 2 battling it out. So Jonathan Goke is going to lead him away around here at the Pocono Raceway. Ryan Otis in 2nd. Andrew Kinsella in 3rd, just waiting quietly, wondering what's going to happen as the lap car's on the inside, down on the back stretch. Tony Schoen in 4th, doing the same thing as Kinsella. And I imagine Brian Greenlee is going to be doing the same exact thing as the 3rd and 4th place running cars on the racetrack.
Yeah, and of course these guys fighting really hard. But now look, Andrew Kinsella now onto almost to the rear wing. Just as we said, they weren't gaining a whole lot. Now he's almost on the rear wing of Ryan O's. Just how much that draft and how fast that draft can change things here is now he backs off a little bit going down the front stretch. But Jonathan Goke definitely has been kind of the class of the field here for today. He's definitely put on a show. He's been the one car that's just been consistently up front here as we've gone through the afternoon.
He definitely has, Adam. And Andrew Kinsella on back are just waiting patiently. And I tell you what, those guys had an eventful day themselves. I mean, it's just not Jonathan Goke having a dominating performance. But I tell you what, Andrew Kinsella's dodged 2 wrecks and started 26th on the day. Tony Schoen was back there with Andrew, started 27th. And Brian Greenlee started 20th. So great showing for these drivers. But I tell you what, right now it's a perfect opportunity to really understand how the draft works in these Lotus 79s, because right now if you understand how the draft works, you could probably make that big old run in those final few laps.
Yeah, what was it they used to say
Caution's
about
out on the race course.
Oh, I have to figure out what that is. Hold on just a second.
Chris Lalonde maybe. And I do believe it was Chris Lalonde getting loose off of turn number 3. He actually hit the wall and it spun him right around into the pit road entrance, and it was enough to throw out the caution flag.
Well, you know, that might be a blessing in disguise for him because I don't think he accumulated a lot of damage. Oh, no, he went ahead and came into the pits. Oh, no, that's right, because he probably have a pit road entry penalty anyway.
Yep.
So we'll have to see where he ends up shaking out. But it looks like he hit the wall hard, but we've seen guys hit the wall harder and end up being okay. Of course, you got to remember, on these cars, those rear tires, well, they're big, and they have a tendency to reach out there and grab that wall.
They definitely do, and especially if you're under a loose condition, because what happens when you're in a loose condition? The back end of the car kicks right around on you, right? So that means those big old wheels are going to hit that outside wall and make that car really upset, and in this case, it just flung them towards the inside of the racetrack down into pit road entrance, and thankfully, Chris Lalonde did not hit anything.
Okay, so now question. 12 laps into the run, we've heard that car really starts misbehaving at about 13 laps. You only have 7 cars on the lead lap. Do you pit for tires? Or, you know, it could be one of those things that you do the opposite of what the leader does.
Okay. So with that being said, right now you're gonna probably, if for the lucky dog too, you're gonna have about 8 drivers left on the lead lap. Okay, with that being said, and you're going to probably pass all those lap cars eventually anyways if you do pit, so I might as well take the advantage right now, come down pit road and take 4 fresh tires and fill that thing up with fuel and give the best I can in the closing stage of this race, because you are going to run about a couple laps around this joint for caution laps, because we are on 18 to go, so we're probably going to get the green flag about 16 or 15 laps to go. So yeah, I would come down and get some tires.
Now, would you put fuel in it though? I mean, or are you wanting to do that for balance sake?
Probably. Man, that depends. I would do it for balance sake.
There we go.
But
Here's the gameplay. Jonathan Goke looks like he might try. Ryan Otis changes his mind, but everybody else. Brian Greenlee looks like he's going to stay out. So Andrew Kinsella, Tony Schuin. I think I see Stephen Pauly has come in back there as well. So there is your play. So the game is on, gentlemen.
all right, yeah, but now you just got to wonder. I hope those guys can get through the bumps just right and not spin out, because we have seen drivers on older sets of tires spin out if they don't get through the bumps just right. And there's more than one bump, folks. So this is, in my opinion, this is probably a good strategy call. Come down, get 4 fresh tires. That way you can go through the bumps much better than other drivers can.
Well, of course, light's still on the pace car, so we're at least going to go around one more time here under caution around Pocono. At this time, I do believe we have 11 cars still on the racetrack. 12 cars still on the racetrack. Matthew Mercer has fallen to about 11 laps down. So we'll try to... Matthew Mercer just is pretty much, as we said earlier, has been the soldier of this race, because Tanner, that is one torn up L79.
It definitely is, and man, yeah, it's very unfortunate for a bunch, not just Matthew Mercer or a bunch of other drivers too, that have gotten involved in some shape, way, or form of an incident. I really feel bad for Travis, though. I mean, yeah, he's got minor damage, but man, oh man, he spun on pit road, which kind of almost pretty much cost him a shot at winning this race. So I really feel bad for Travis Jageliner.
Well, there you go. So now the question becomes, what was the right call? Was it to come down? Was it to stay out? Jonathan Goke has obviously been the class of this field here. We're going to find out in just a moment. We'll see if they'll turn the lights off on the pace car this time. I bet they do. A lot of the lap down cars are beginning to come down pit road there. You see on your screen, just to kind of get out of the way, I think, of the leaders, or maybe just to get some tires themselves, realizing that you do have a couple battles for position. The position between Travis Jageliner and Rory Collins for 8th and 9th is still very much up for grabs. And of course, with a day like today, which is obviously going to shake up the point standings in a big way, every little spot counts, even if you're a lap down fighting for 8th or 9th.
It definitely does, and I mean, you just got to try to make the best of it at this point of the race. If you're multiple laps down, just make the best of it and move on to Montreal, which is going to happen in a few weeks' time. And that's a tough road course too. So I'm sure plenty of these drivers that have actually left the session are already turning laps at Montreal, because that is a tough road course up there in Canada. But meanwhile, you're going to have 7 guys on the lead lap that are going to try to fight for this win. With about 15 laps to go when they take the green flag.
Yeah, we might not get a chance to talk about it, so let's talk about it now. Once we get to Montreal, Ryan Otis obviously was the class of the field at Watkins Glen. Do you think he's going to be able to avoid the wall of champions out there?
I tell you what, the way he dominated Watkins Glen, man, there's only one driver he's going to have to keep an eye on, and that is Jake C. Wright. Jake C. Wright is one of the best road course drivers I have ever seen on iRacing, probably maybe second to Greg Hutu on the road course side of things. But I tell you what, it's going to be a definite battle between those two drivers, and Ryan Otis has got to enter that race with a bunch of confidence, especially with running in second place right now at Pocono.
Well, it's definitely going to be a good points day for him. Of course, he's running 6th in the points before this race. All of your top 5 involved in accidents early on in this race. So Ryan Oates looking to gain every single spot that he can and maximize his position. As we're getting ready to go back to green with 16 laps to go, the hammer is down. Jonathan Goke is going, and behind him is Ryan Oates, followed by Brian Greenlee.
Green flag is back out. 15 laps to go. What was the right call and who is going to win? We will find that out in 15 laps as Jonathan Koch leads the drivers down into turn number 1. It was by Ryan Otis and Brian Greenlee, the top 3 that have stayed out under that caution.
Now there is the lap car, Travis Jagerliner, that is between Brian Greenlee and Andrew Kinsella, so he's going to have to get around him before we really see what kind of gains they get. But right now, it is all Jonathan Koch up front. But don't look now, you've got Ryan Otis behind him, but look who's really gaining behind him is Brian Greenlee. Brian Greenlee making his presence known here late in this race.
What a way. What if Brian Greenlee wins this race, especially with his onboard camera view? Oh my goodness. That's got to be a pretty emotional victory if he does make it to victory lane today.
Yeah, and then he will definitely be the first one we talk to here after this race. Remember, stay tuned. After the race, we're going to talk to Brian Greenlee about the Officer Down Memorial page. It's going to be a great discussion. But right now, he's got his hands full with that Lotus 79, trying to negotiate turn 1 in the draft of Jonathan Koch. And of course, in front of Koch is Ryan Otis, but not for long. Jonathan Koch's going to drive to the inside. He is going to go ahead and take the preferred line going down into the tunnel turn. As meanwhile, behind these 3, Andrew Kinsella and Tony Schuin and I believe Stephen Pauly as well have gotten around the lap car of Travis Jagerliner. So now we're going to be able to see, was tires the right call? Do they have enough time? Are they able to gain enough before their tires even out with the leaders?
I think they spent a little too much time with Travis Jagerliner because right now they're about a good close to 2 seconds. Yeah, they're flat out 2 seconds behind, and that's really hard for Tony Schoen right now in 4th place to snip a draft off one of those top 3 drivers. So, and looks like Brian Greenlee had a pretty big moment down turn number 1. He is okay at the moment.
Yeah, but one thing that he does lose is a little bit of time, now falling about 0.6 of a second now behind your leader, Jonathan Koch. Jonathan Koch in control now, but he's got Ryan Otis behind him. How long till Ryan Otis takes control again here for a little bit? Might not be too long. Tries to sniff a little bit of clean air going into turn 3 and goes to the outside. That outside line, sometimes you can just motor off that line and get a little bit of momentum, but he's not going to have enough momentum to carry him to the lead before turn 1. You really want to be up on somebody's wing to be able to have that, so try to jockey around just a little bit. Once again, I think Ryan Otis is mostly looking for clean air, try to get a little bit of downforce before he goes into the corner. That's probably why you see him sneaking out like that, and maybe also try to break the draft of Brian Greenlee behind them. And those guys in back, well, to answer your question, they don't have any lap traffic behind them, and they lost another 0.3 of a second to the leader that last lap. So they've got to get a move on soon, but right now it doesn't look like it's going to happen. They're going to have to battle it out for 4th, 5th, and 6th amongst themselves here to round out this race.
Yeah, they are really losing time to the top 3 drivers right now, and they're losing it at almost every corner, Adam. So, and that is very unfortunate for Tony Schoen and Andrew Kinsella, and in my opinion, for those drivers, they're going to have to hope for a caution flag to have any kind of shot to win this race, or if the top 3 decide to take each other out, those guys will be in the back of the theater popcorn seats. But meanwhile, it is the top 3, Jonathan Koch, Ryan Otis, and Brian Greenlee, the guys that stayed out.
Well, yeah, so far that looks to be the better strategy play. That last lap, though, those back 3 pack there did kind of even out just a little bit as far as time, but they might run out of time before the end of this race unless something crazy happens. But with the way this race has been today, I wouldn't put anything out of the question. Is what we've looked at here up front. Brian Greenlee has been able to get back up to the rear wing of 2nd place. Now 2nd place, Jonathan Koch. As they go down the front stretch, Ryan Otis here looks like he's going to go ahead and lead this lap, but Jonathan Koch's going to take another look once they get into 1 here. Is plenty of air on that front wing, plenty of downforce for both of those guys. They should be able to drive it in hard here, but you got to remember that bump is still out there, and these guys' tires are not new anymore.
Not new anymore, but I was concerned for Brian Greenlee at first. He backed off last time by in turn number 3 big time and lost a little snip of the draft, but it looks like he is okay riding the thick of things of the top 2 drivers at the moment as Tony Schoen and Andrew Kinsella continue to lose time to these top 3 drivers. So it is pretty much the only battle on the racetrack is for that top spot. Ryan Otis and Jonathan Koch.
It might be like that. We still got almost 9 laps to go here before the end of this race, and pretty much anything can still happen up there, as what we've seen here so far today. I can't count Brian Greenlee out just yet. He just seems like he's just kind of hanging out there. Like, I really wonder if he has a stronger car than what he's shown here the last little bit. But we got 9 laps still to figure that out. And one thing he definitely does not want to do is definitely does not want to lose that draft as we go through the later stages of this race. Okay, so a little bit of distance now between first, second, and third. That's calming down just a touch for the moment. Let's take a look back here just a little bit. Let's go back to the battle for fourth and fifth, as it looks like Tony Schuin has just been able to make a move on Andrew Kinsella, trading those fourth and fifth positions. And of course, behind them, you have Stephen Pauly and Chris Lanini as well. And those are your only cars on the lead lap at this point. So all top 7 positions are still up for grabs in one way or another. Let's get back up front. Look at the weaving going on there. Jonathan Goke really doing his best now to hold off Ryan Otis. This is going to be the part of the race where, okay, give and take is about done. We are racing for the win, guys.
We're bobbing. We're weaving. We're trying to break the draft. We just haven't wrecked yet. And side by side for the race lead down into the tunnel turn. Ryan Otis on the bottom, Goke on the high side. That's going to try to trade back and forth here. Goke wants it back. Greenlee's just like, you guys keep dancing there. Something might happen. One of you guys is going to step on each other's toes.
Yeah, pretty much. And, but even if Brian Greenlee isn't able to do anything with those two, a podium position for him today is not going to be a bad deal at all. So definitely there. You don't want to put yourself in a position to possibly sacrifice that podium position. So he might be happy staying there, but he's a racer. We all know if he has a chance of grabbing that position, he's going to take it.
One thing I have noticed in the Lionheart Retro Series is that we've already ran 3 races so far this season with 3 different winners. So it's been really a competitive series since the drop of the green flag, which happened at the Homestead Miami Speedway for race number 1. And it looks like we're going to see another winner today between the top 3 drivers. Or not top 3. Ryan Otis.
One and one. So, but he is the only driver that is still in this race that can claim a second victory on the season. So that's still something right there. Of course, if you're just joining us here in the later stages of this race, plenty of big accidents earlier on. One of those types that just really weren't anybody's doing. It was just kind of bad luck, and it really decimated the top 10 positions. The only 2 guys from the top 10 in points that are still running right now is Ryan Otis running in second, and also Tony Schuin right now running in 4th position. Speaking of Tony Schuin, looks like Andrew Kinsella here is going to get a good look on him as they go down into the tunnel turn. He might go ahead and try to steal that position. Look at Stephen Pauly. Stephen Pauly's going to go and try to stick his nose in there. Could he make a play on that and drop Tony Schuin back even a couple of more positions there, trying to ride the wave there, but not able to get the momentum. In fact, Tony Schuin should be able to have a little bit more momentum there, running high, going through 3. Once again, this is for 4th, 5th, 6th, and you look back there, Chris Lanini right back there in 7th position.
Yeah, this is pretty much like the biggest battle on the racetrack with the exception of the top 3 drivers, but this is the only side-by-side battle that has taken place so far. Oh, trouble! Andrew Kinsella is spinning around turn number 1, out. And this will bring out a caution, and that might end the race.
Oh, and Kinsella, his luck runs out. Not only is he done because of the accident, I believe he disqualified from the race. As we watch the replay, his car hits that bump and just breaks loose right into Stephen Pauly. Stephen Pauly has been lucky today too, and well, his luck runs out as well also. So tough break for Andrew Kinsella after just a great way to try to stay up there. But bottom line is, those guys, with as far back as they are, they still going to have finishes in the top half of the field here for this afternoon. But tough break nonetheless.
Very tough break for Andrew Kinsella after everything he had been through today, Adam, and that's very unfortunate for Andrew. But nonetheless, we are not gonna. I don't think we are gonna go back green whatsoever. We were in that window to where, if the caution flag flies, it's gonna end the race because we don't have any kind of green-white checkers on iRacing or any kind of overtime rules whatsoever. So Jonathan Goke's pretty much gonna take home the victory at Pocono Raceway.
Yeah, it's either going to be that or it's going to be a one-lap shootout. We're going to have to watch and see what happens with the pace car. Sometimes It could be a little bit on the iffy side too. But big track like Pocono, Jonathan Goke, if this is indeed going to be the end of the race, he's going to have a long time to celebrate here.
Oh yeah, dominated the race. I mean, almost like the perfect weekend. You started from the pole, you dominated the race, and you won the race.
And now, if you're Ryan Otis, you're talking to those virtual iRacing guys and saying, "Hey, come on! I still got something left in the tank." But we'll have to see exactly what happens here. As you said, with the caution coming out where it is, it's either going to be a one-lap shootout or it's going to be the end of the race. So, still some questions to be answered. But the bottom line is, everybody up front can make it on field, especially with the yellow. And if it does not go back, Jonathan Goke has certainly earned this one today, running up front all day long and trading off the lead back and forth with Ryan Otis, with Bob Mikas early on in the race. He's just been up there all night long.
He definitely has. Ryan Otis, I tell you what, I mean, this is the third start in the Lionheart Retro Series, and he's finished in the top 5 at every single start. So that's a pretty good accomplishment on Ryan Otis's part.
Well, with that, of course, we'll go through the final standings, of course, when this race goes official. But Ryan Otis, of course, we talked about he's 6th in the point standings coming into this race. Jake Wright was 1st in the point standings. He's going to finish all the way down in 15th. So definitely going to be a good points day for Ryan Otis here. As either way at this point, no matter what happens, it's going to end up being a good point day for him.
And it does, and just kind of looking at everybody that has finished in the top 10 so far this season, this does truly break everybody up. That would mean no driver has finished in the top 10 in every single race so far this season. Ryan Otis, he did not start every single race. He's missed one race so far this season, but he's finished in the top 5 every start that he has made, and this is his 3rd start of the season, so Ryan Otis is definitely going to climb up there in the point standings.
And of course, we talked about those guys. We got to go back and talk a little bit about Brian Greenlee as well. Brian running 31st in the points. He hasn't had the greatest of seasons. He's definitely looking for something to help turn it around. And this very well could be it for him, with the potential possibly of a podium finish for him if we do not go back green. Once again, either way, it's going to be his best finish of the season so far, no matter what happens at this point, because even if we do have a one-lap shootout, he's not going to fall outside the top 10. And of course, Brian Greenlee been very lucky for today. He missed a couple of incidents and not by much.
Yeah, Brian Greenlee, I mean, it's been a very slow start for Brian Greenlee. He's going to capture his first top 5 and first top 10 of the season with an average finish of a 26 so far. But this should definitely boost up his confidence for future races to come. Oh, man, and that means the lights are out. So
one lap shootout for the win of the...
We spoke too soon.
I love it. I love it. Remember, the Fallen 250 is going to come down to a one-lap shootout here at Pocono. And, of course, that'll mean that Jonathan Goke's going to have to be up on the wheel and try to get as good of a start as he can, but not too good of a start, and give Ryan Otis a lot of momentum behind him to carry into the second half of the lap. So things are getting ready to get interesting, Tanner.
Look at the players, though, that we have. Top 5 cars, single file. Any one of these 5 can win this race in one lap.
And your fourth, and don't forget, Stephen Pauly does have some damage. He is back there running on the lead lap in 6th position. So 4th and 5th position between Tony Schoen and Chris Lanini. Don't forget, they do have newer tires. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything with your leader, Jonathan Goke, but they definitely can make a play in the middle of this field as long as they have good restarts here.
Yeah, you're going to need a very good restart. You can't be playing around with the lap cars whatsoever. This is it. So here we go. Jonathan Goke really being slow, bringing them back to pace speed here. Pace car's way up there. A couple of car lengths back to Jonathan Goke, and they're all on the outside line trying to protect their position.
Well, this is it. All the marbles, all your cards on the table. You've got one lap to win this race. And here we go. Jonathan Goke on the pedal. Jonathan Goke with a terrific restart. He's already weaving. He's already going to try to break the draft. And Brian Greenlee already has his hands full back there with Tony Schuin. As Tony Schuin's going to take a look on the outside going into one. But Brian Greenlee might be able to retain that position. Right now, your leader, Jonathan Goke, out to a very good lead. You're looking at the front of Brian Greenlee's car. Brian Greenlee drifts high. Tony Schuin has to watch, but back up to the front.
Look at this.
Jonathan Goke weaving around, trying to break that draft between him and Ryan Otis. I don't think they understand the meaning of a straight line right now. They're going down into the tunnel turn. Definitely tight. Woo.
It is hard. Oh.
These guys are getting ready to go into turn 3, and the question is going to be what's going to happen there. What lines do they take? Ryan Otis is going to run a little bit higher than Jonathan Goke. But does he have enough time? No. I believe that Jonathan Goke is going to be able to run away with this thing. Coming to the line, there is your winner, Jonathan Goke. Coming over second place, Ryan Otis. And behind him, I do believe Tony Schuin was able to get third place over Brian Greenlee. Brian Greenlee is going to finish in 4th position, and then there was a car in the wall back there.
Chris Lalani.
Yeah, Chris Lalani was hit the wall coming out of 3 there, trying to get every little bit out of it that he can. Okay, let's take a deep breath. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and talk about your final standings here for the race here for today. We're going to have a talk with Brian Greenlee as well as your podium finishers here coming up in just a few minutes. Well, this race was certainly an interesting one for the Remember the Fallen 250-miler race at Pocono Raceway, and definitely going to go down and was one of the more interesting ones, I think, of the Lionheart Retro Series, at least once the season is said and done, but it's a long season. We got a long way to go until November. So your winner of your round 4, that went to Jonathan Goke, and just a dominating performance. The only car to really run up front all day long, Jonathan Goke, but he had to hold off Ryan Otis, a hard-charging Ryan Otis at times, points here for today. Tony Schoen brings it home in third. It'll round out your podium. Brian Greenlee comes home in fourth position. Brian definitely had his eyes full a couple of times with a few incidents. Chris Lanini out there as well, rounding out your top five, and Stephen Pauly in sixth position, 8 seconds off the lead. Of course, he ended up having a little bit of an incident there to bring out the last caution a little bit before the end of the race. Travis Hageliner, your first car a lap down in seventh position. Rory Collins in eighth. Big Joe Hassard coming home in ninth position for today, and David Altman in 10th. Tanner?
Yeah, and Andrew Constella, who brought the last caution, is going to finish in the 11th position tonight. Matthew Mercer will finish in 12th. Robert Bluen, 13th. Bob Mikes, who was a front runner and crashed out early, will finish 14th. Point leader, or what should I say? Oh, I think he still is the point leader. Jake Wright will finish 15th. Chris Stouffer in 16th. 17th place is Dustin Wardlow. 18th place, Bradley Walters. Pierre Diegel in 19th, and rounding out the top 20 is James Paulson.
Yeah, coming home in 21st position, Samuel Raymond, our colleague here at GSRC, running tonight, and didn't end up working out the greatest for him out there in that GSRC Lotus 79 car. John Napier coming home in 22nd. Joe Branch in 23rd. Tough break for Joe. He was up there running up front early on. Patrick Taylor in 24th. Jason Galvin, fellow newsman there, 25th position. 26th position, Ed Tutwaller. 27th position, Vincent Blumenthal. Tough break for him as well. Gregory Napier, Drew Motz, and Ron Hacker round out your top 30.
And last but not least, it is George Anzaldo, league organizer, rounds out the top 31 car field that started tonight's race.
Okay, so we know the point standings are going to get shaken up. Of course, that's going to be a matter of conversation here over the course of the next couple weeks until we get to our next race in Montreal. But obviously, the subject for tonight's race was Remember the Fallen 250. And one of the onboard cameras that you saw us mention quite a bit was the Officer Down Memorial Page cam right along there with Brian Greenlee. And of course, thank Brian Greenlee for doing that. And we're going to go ahead and talk to him here real quick. Hey, Brian, we'll talk to you about the race here in just a minute. But why don't you go ahead, give everybody a little bit of a brief overview of the Officer Down Memorial Page.
Well, Adam, Tanner, good to see you guys tonight. In 1996, Chris Cosgriff was a James Madison University freshman. He read about fallen officers, and he realized that there wasn't a way to really track the fallen officers in the nation at that time. So he created the Officer Down Memorial Page, which helps keep a record of all the law enforcement men and women who have given up their lives in the line of duty.
Yeah, and it seems like just a terrific way to try to remember, and of course also the sad part of having to keep track of them. And it's coming from somebody that, of course, I've been involved in news most of my adult life, only up until here the last couple of years. I've worked with police officers pretty close, and a lot of those guys are near and dear to my heart. And we mentioned early on in the broadcast, and I actually didn't know this until tonight, that you're a police officer yourself. So obviously this is something definitely near and dear to your heart. What's been your personal experience so far with this page? What's your involvement with it?
Well, by all means, I always follow it to keep an idea on the brothers and sisters that fall in the line of duty and try to find out ways perhaps I can help with their families, and just reach out and show my respect and that they gave the ultimate sacrifice. Just keeping up with it and trying to donate as much as I can, which I urge anyone who can, if you have a few extra dollars, please donate to this. It's a wonderful cause.
Well, Brian, why don't you go ahead and tell us the address and how people can get to the page here real quick.
The Officer Down Memorial page is www.odmp.org. On that link, it will give you a donate link, and you can donate online, donate by mail, or you can have a donor if you so choose. But if you just Google ODMP, it'll take you right to the page.
Well, Well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for doing this here tonight on the broadcast and everything else. And obviously, it's one of those things that sometimes you don't just want to think about, but sometimes you got it because you don't want to ever leave them behind in memories. So, but with that, Brian, let's talk a little bit about the race here for today. You had an eyeful a couple of times in the middle of that race, didn't you?
Oh, that was fun, wasn't it? It was insane. The way I was able to skate out of some of those crashes, some of the slides I had was amazing. And man, I can't speak enough about Ryan, Jonathan, and Tony. And those guys they can run really well.
Yeah, and of course you had a great battle there with Tony Schuin right at the end of the race. Tell us a little bit about it.
I misjudged the start. I thought John was going to go later than what he did, and he didn't. And when I did, I kind of stalled the car and won, and that gave Tony the opportunity to catch up with me. And I probably could have pushed a little harder in turn one, but I was afraid that if I pushed it hard, I was going to crash us both. And at that point, after that race we'd run, for me and him both to crash right there and one would be terrible. And I didn't have nothing for him in 3. He was just faster than I was there.
All right. Well, hey, Brian, once again, we appreciate you. Appreciate everything you do, and keep protecting that thin blue line, man.
Always, Adam. Thanks. And real quick, if I can, I want to thank George and all the George Anzaldo and all the admin here for the Lionheart Retro Series. They put on a great show. Thank you guys for hosting us and having us. And I also want to thank my Dragonfly teammates, Robert Bluen, Dustin Wardlow, Patrick Taylor, and associate driver over there with Star Lancer Motorsports, Chris Lanini, excuse me.
All right. Well, once again, folks, that's Brian Greenlee. Appreciate everything that he does for all of us out there. But I do believe that Tanner is caught up with your race winner, Jonathan Goke.
I definitely have caught up with Jonathan Goke. Started on the pole, dominated the race, and wins the race. That is a perfect day, in my opinion, there, Jonathan. You got to be feeling pretty confident after this race, even though you've only had a limited start in this series so far. Tell me about the race. I mean, you were just out front trying to get the race lead in any which way you can, and sometimes in aggressive mode too, but sometimes you got to be like that on a track like Pocono.
Oh, definitely. Pocono is by far my favorite track, probably the track that I'm best at. Got a lot of wins in the IndyCar in this track, and it's good to get a win in the retro car. I'm tired. I mean, that's probably one of the hardest I've ever had to do because the force feedback that car gives back it jars your hands pretty good. And I thought it was over when I spun in front of the pack. I cannot believe I did not hit anything. So I just got my good graces there, and I decided to go back up through there and try to lead as much as I can.
Yeah, you see, folks, I wasn't kidding about how hard these cars are definitely to drive. I think they're a little more harder than the actual NASCARs that they run on Pocono here, in my opinion. But talking about the race today, and now we had a long green flag stint and a bunch of guys spinning, and you were one of those guys that spun on fresh tires too, on newer tires than other drivers. That's when you took a spin down turn number 1. How in the world did you save that race car from being hit from other drivers and including avoiding the outside wall?
I have no idea. I was a little bit too low on entry, and I guess my right rear was a little too hot, and it spun. I went in the grass. I just locked it up, pointed it in the right direction. I was just waiting to get slammed. It didn't happen. I got it facing the right way, and then all of a sudden I've got like 10 cars wrecking in front of me, so I slam on the brakes and stop, and I just go right around through it. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I got a second shot at this.
Unbelievable. And I tell you what, and to talk about those bumps, do you after that spin, did you hit those? Do you just finally decide how to hit those bumps when you're on entry of those corners like turn 3 and turn 1?
Well, we're going so fast. I mean, you try to aim where you want to do it, but the car's going to do whatever it wants to do. So every time I'd hit the bump, I'd get squiggly. I mean, you saw a couple times I got loose, and I thought it was over again. But you just got to try to hold on and just try to fight the car and fight everyone else around you. It's just like when it comes to this track, you're fighting the track more than you are the car because it's got 3 completely different corners, and it can bite you if you don't watch out.
Most definitely, as we've seen today. Now, before we let you go here, Jonathan, now we go to a road course now. Are you going to be participating in Montreal on April the 6th?
I definitely will give it my best. I put on a lot of laps in the Delar over in Montreal, and it's one of my favorite road courses, so I'll put down some laps and I'll see if I can get up there. I probably won't be at the front, but I'll still be in the field to give a good shout out to George and all the retro guys.
All right, Jonathan, we thank you for coming to talk with us tonight. 4 races completed and 4 different races. Congratulations, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
That was Jonathan Goke winning the race at Pocono tonight. And Adam, who'd you pick up today?
We got Ryan Otis, your second place finisher here for tonight. Ryan, second place, you're up there jockeying for position pretty much almost the entire second half of the race with Jonathan Goke, but just didn't have what you needed to get around him at the end.
Yeah, I felt like I had kind of the timing pretty well figured out to get a good run on him and try to get inside at that late restart, but I just didn't quite time it right, and he did a really good job just moving all over the place trying to break the draft, and so I just couldn't time the run on him in the pass.
Well, but granted, of course, you were able to time it plenty of times going through the middle part of the race. I mean, man, what a fantastic battle all race along between the both of you. You know, and really, you were also one of the only 2 people out of the entire top 10 to get through this race without any top 10 in points, that is, without any kind of major incidents happening to you. So you're going to be looking at a pretty good jump up in points. Now, was that ever on your mind, or were you totally focused on just trying to get that win tonight?
No, I was actually more worried about the points because I'd missed a race, and so all I wanted was, a top 5 would have been great. And kind of like you said, the whole second half of the race, I was kind of fighting for the lead, and I liked the way the car drove better in clean air, and so I was just kind of hoping that Goke would I don't know, do a lap or 2 behind me, but as soon as I'd get ahead of him, he'd just turn around and pass me right back. So it was great fun.
Well, it was definitely fun to watch up in the booth here tonight. Now, Ryan, of course, Montreal up next. You pretty well dominated last time at Watkins Glen. Are you going to be going to put on a similar performance at Montreal?
Boy, I hope so. I mean, these guys, there's some super fast road course guys here. So, I'm more of a road course guy myself, so I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I think it'll be a great battle for sure.
All right. Well, hey, anybody you want to thank here real quick?
Now I just got to thank my teammate James. He kind of got tangled up a little bit early, but he was good help. We were working on pit strategy a little bit and trying to help each other out. And, so it was a lot of great help there. My Streamline teammate James, but yeah, unfortunately he got tangled up and wasn't able to finish.
Well, anyway, you were able to finish. Congratulations on your second place finish, and of course, surviving what ended up being Pocono. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, your second place finisher, Ryan Otis, and I believe that Tanner has caught up with your third place finisher, Tony Schuin.
I have caught up with Tony Schoen, and Tony, prior to this finish today, you finished in 12th, and this just marks your best finish on the season in the top 3 spot after dodging many wrecks. You got to be pretty good, have a good feeling coming with a podium finish.
Oh yeah, that was the goal from the beginning of the race, was dodging all those wrecks. I goofed up my qualifying run, and I was starting out in the back, so I just decided to chill out back there, and I did have a pretty good view of some good wrecks back there.
Yeah, definitely, and I probably luck had to take some form a part of dodging those wrecks, but a lot of driver skill had to probably take a part in dodging those wrecks as well. Give me your thoughts on on how the car was on Pocono today, and with all the guys wrecking out and spinning out by themselves, I should add. Give me your thoughts on your race today.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like you could conserve the tires and it would help you out. You could even snap it coming out of a turn, with only a few laps on the tires. It's just the way these cars are set up in their suspension. If they're bouncing through the turn and you jerk the wheel just right when you're in one of those bounces, it'll go on you. And that was another thing I was trying to keep an eye on, was just making sure I was steady through the turns all the way through.
Yeah, definitely. And when we had our long green flag stint, I noticed you were trying to really draft and not make any kind of pass. You were trying to draft as much as you can. Is that a good strategy on trying to save fuel in these cars, especially with dealing with these long straightaways at Pocono?
Yeah, it is. That wasn't really my goal, though. It was just, I was right behind Andrew Kinsella, and we were just basically riding out the laps, and it just so happened that he was right in front of me. And then also whenever we had to pit, he was right in front of me in pit lane also, so it was advantageous to be behind him when we went in pit lane. So, but it does, when you're riding right behind somebody, I was lifting a lot when I was doing that. So.
Yeah, definitely. And it looked like you guys were lifting a lot too, just trying to save a little gas, maybe 3/4 throttle, half throttle. So, and that really gives you a little leeway gap between the front bumper and the back bumper of the guy in front of you there. Now at Watkins Glen, you finished in 15th. And now we're going to go to another road course on April the 6th at Montreal. Do you feel like you can snatch another top 15 or even a top 10 finish at a road course?
I doubt it. I'm not a road course guy. I considered when I entered that Watkins Glen race, I told myself I would be really happy if I got a top 15, and that's what happened. So I suppose if I get a top 15 at Montreal, which is a lot more of a difficult track for me, I'll be really happy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Tony, congratulations on getting a podium finish after starting 27th and only getting 2 incident points. That's pretty impressive on a track like Pocono. So congratulations on the podium finish, and we will see you at Montreal.
Thank you much. I just want to say a quick thanks out to Brian for sponsoring the race, and then George Anzaldo and the team. They run a great show with this league, and then also my teammates at Adrenaline Motorsports, Andrew Kinsella, Joe Branch, Chris Stouffer, and Michael Peters. Thank you much.
That was Tony Schoen, folks, getting a podium finish, a third place finish tonight. And Adam, we've seen a lot of wild racing action here at Pocono, and now we're going to go left and right up in Canada in Montreal in about 2-3 weeks' time.
Yeah, and that's going to be a fun one, I think, to watch, and I hope everybody comes back for that. Well, of course, we'll tell you when here in just a minute, but obviously we got to get our thanks and everything else out of the way as we wrap up tonight. Want to give a special shout out to once again, the Officer Down Memorial page. Go check it out, odmp.org, and any way you can help those folks out in remembering our fallen police officers, that would be a fantastic way. But we also want to thank the organizer of tonight's event, the Lionheart Racing Series. You can find them at lionheartracingseries.com. Thanks to the software and hardware that we use for our broadcast. You can see those listed there on your screen, and then more thanks even to our musical contributors, Eric Elcombe and Casey Lalonde, whose music you can also find at the websites listed. Thanks to the team today, Tanner, Joe, Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, along with archived races and upcoming broadcasts. We're also on Twitter at GSRC Channel and Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. As we've been talking about, the next race is going to be Thursday, April 6th at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for 100 laps or 100 miles there, and that's going to be at 10:35 Eastern on April 6th. We also have upcoming races for other series on your screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.